One Piece, The Reaper's Arrival Part 1. Year 1508 of the Hyuan calendar. 10 years since the dawn of the Great Pirate Era. West Blue. Botatan Island. On the western coast, at the edge of the kingdom of Sitkia, a small fishing village lay in peaceful slumber beneath the pale moonlight. The fishermen, exhausted from a day's work, were unaware of the danger creeping toward them, a two-masted pirate ship silently approaching the shore. The moment the anchor hit the water, chaos was inevitable. Pirates poured onto the beach, their shadows stretching long under the moon. "Boys, follow the rules." The command came from a towering figure, Mikey, the Iron Hand Butcher. His rough voice carried an unmistakable menace. At nearly 3 meters tall, Mikey was a living embodiment of brutality. But what truly set him apart was his massive right hand, encased in thick metal armor, nearly twice the size of his left. His gaze fixed on the small village of barely 100 homes, his lips curled into a cruel grin. His eyes burned with the promise of violence. "Leave no one alive!" That was the Iron Hand pirates' way. They never left survivors. Their cruelty was infamous, their attacks swift and merciless. A phantom menace across West Blue, they left nothing but carnage in their wake. Captain Mikey's bounty? A staggering 45 million Baileys. "Boss, leave it to us! Let's go, brothers, time to loot!" "Damn, 10 days at sea. Finally, we've hit land! TCH, this village looks dirt poor. Hope we can at least fill our stomachs." "Forget it. If it weren't for those damn Marines hounding us like wild dogs, we wouldn't even waste time on a backwater like this." Beneath the moonlight, doors were kicked open. Fishermen, barely awake, found themselves staring into the barrels of guns and the gleaming edges of cutlasses. "Who are why? HHH!" Gunfire erupted. Bang! 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 "Damn pirates! I'll fight you to the death!" Steel met flesh. Blood painted the walls. Screams echoed, only to be swallowed by the sea breeze. The villagers never stood a chance. Within half an hour, it was over. 100 lives snuffed out. The village plundered. Crates of supplies and barrels of stolen wine were hauled onto the ship. At the bow, Mikey guzzled from a stolen bucket of liquor, the scent of blood still fresh in the air. The ship's oars sliced through the still waters, leaving only ripples behind. And silence. The next morning, a sea breeze swept through the ruined village, carrying away the last traces of blood from the air. Among the bodies, a child stirred. Not just any child, Lynch. No. Smavenzi Luodi. A boy who had just turned 6. A boy who should have died last night. But something was different. Because his body, and his fading, fragmented memories, now belonged to someone else. Lynch, a young man from another world. And through the remnants of the boy's memories, Luodi pieced together the truth. He was in the world of One Piece. West Blue. A tiny fishing village on the outskirts of Botatan Island. A peaceful place, untouched by pirates. Until last night. The Iron Hand pirates had descended like wolves. And now, the village was no more. The most twisted part? The pirates left behind a flag on the beach, marking their conquest with arrogance. The once thriving village was now a graveyard. Scattered corpses, severed limbs, blood dried to a deep crimson, staining the earth. A grim testament to the few fishermen who had tried to resist. Luodi, hardened as he was, nearly vomited at the sight. This was the true world of pirates. Brutal. Merciless. Ahem, damn it, I almost died again. He choked down a stale biscuit, something he scavenged from the ruins. A rough bandage wrapped around his chest, covering a deep gash. With no proper treatment, it was a miracle he could even move. But something else gnawed at his mind. A memory. A distinct, overwhelming taste. Rotten eggs, marinated in sewer water, left to fester for days. A taste so awful it was burned into his soul. It happened 2 days ago. The original Luodi, eager to help his struggling family, had wandered into Gola Forest to forage for food. And in his hunger, he had eaten a strange fruit. His memories of its appearance were blurry. But Luo Di was 80% sure. He had eaten a devil fruit. A fruit that granted extraordinary abilities, at the cost of never being able to swim again. There were 3 types. Paramecia, bizarre but powerful abilities. Zoan, animal transformations. Logia, complete control over elements. But which one had he consumed? And more importantly, did his death cause the devil fruit's power to disappear? Had it left his body and attached itself to another fruit? Luo Di's thoughts grew heavy. Then, he closed his eyes. Focused. Tried to feel the power within him. A minute passed. Nothing. Then, something stirred. Dark energy seeped out of his body, swirling like black smoke. It gathered before him, forming a shadowy figure. It had no face, no features. Only a shape, his own. And in its hands, a scythe. 1 meter long. Black as night. Luo Di's breath caught. A Shinigami? Had it come to claim his soul? But the figure did not move. Instead, Luo Di felt something strange, a connection. Like it was waiting for him. Not a Shinigami, he murmured. No. This was something else. Something that had been within him since that wretched fruit. His devil fruit ability. Let's see if I can control it. Taking a cautious step back, he reached out with his mind. Swing the scythe. A pause. Then, the figure moved. Both hands gripped the weapon. With a swift, fluid motion, it slashed forward. Crack. The wooden wall before him split apart, a deep gash torn into its surface. But almost immediately, the figure wavered. The energy dispersed. Dark tendrils rushed back into Luo Di's forehead, leaving him breathless. A strange sensation washed over him. For a moment, just one moment, he saw everything. The entire village. Like he had lived it all before. And yet, something told him. This was only the beginning. When the last trace of black energy entered Luo Di's forehead, the whole house seemed to have been hit hard by something, shaking violently. That's not an illusion. Luo Di clearly saw that the empty bowl on the table beside him moved from the center to the edge of the table. It was obvious that he had moved some distance away from him. Phew, so tired! A strong sense of exhaustion came over him, and Luo Di's legs weakened. In addition, his young body was already injured, which caused him to fall to the ground without being able to stand still. The scar on the chest also cracked slightly due to the shock, and blood slowly seeped out. So hungry! After being exhausted, a feeling of hunger came over him, and Luo Di had to endure the pain and get up from the ground with difficulty. His young hands stained with blood supported the wooden wall, and he staggered out of the wooden house to look for food in other rooms. The group of pirates came suddenly and left quickly. There must still be food left in the small fishing village, maybe not much, but there must be some. After searching 2 houses, Luo Di finally found some food. There was a small bag of coarse rice left in the corner, and 2 dried fish that had fallen to the ground and been pickled with coarse salt. There is clean water outside every house. Luo Di found a random stove, and used his remaining energy to steam rice hastily. Because he was really hungry, he quickly finished the dried fish. Feeling that his physical strength was slowly recovering, Luo Di began to try to use the power of the devil fruit again. However, I don't know if there is a deviation in the method of use. This time there is a clear difference from the last change. The energy body did not appear, and instead, wisps of unknown black mist emerged. As if they were alive, they were lingering around him very intimately. However, the changes don't stop there. His hands gradually began to turn black, and his short black hair grew rapidly until it stopped at his waist. A black vertical mark appeared in the center of his forehead, and some strange black patterns appeared around his eyes. Scythe of Shinigami! Luo Di looked down at the black sickle that appeared in his hand at some point. The sickle is completely black, the handle is carved with strange textures, and the blade is jagged, sharp, and breathtaking. At this moment, Luo Di finally knew what the devil fruit his predecessor had eaten was. Animal type human fruit phantom beast species Shinigami form. There is no doubt that the animal type phantom species is a devil fruit that is rarer than the ancient species, or even the Logia. There is no doubt about its power. As for why the previous energy body appeared, he had no way of knowing. However, one thing is for sure, he can use the power of devil fruit. This alone is enough. Luo Di then released his Shinigami form and his appearance returned to normal. Maintaining the Shinigami form requires a lot of physical strength. In his current state, he can maintain it for 1 minute if he stands still, and it may take less than 10 seconds if he moves. It just doesn't last long. The wound doesn't seem to hurt anymore. I don't know if it was his imagination, but Luo Di felt that the wound seemed to have healed a little. Let's take a look after eating. Shaking his head slightly, he sat back in front of the stove again, quietly waiting for the rice to come out of the pot. In that short period of time, his physical strength was almost exhausted again. Luo Di never expected that he could finish a whole pot of white rice. It has to be said that even as a child, this physique is not comparable to that of his previous life. With enough energy, he untied the gray blood-stained cloth wrapped around his chest. What came into view was a hand-length cut across half of his chest. Strangely, the wound was already scarred and was not as scary as before. Could it be said that entering the Shinigami form can speed up wound healing? With this mentality, Luo Di entered the Shinigami form again. I saw that the black mist surrounding him suddenly pulled out a small amount and covered the wound. He only felt itchy at the wound. The wound is really healing. Luo Di was determined almost at the same time. But considering that this form consumes too much energy, he finally released the Shinigami form. But this time, the wound was in better condition than last time. At least it won't affect his daily activities. By the way, when I entered that suspected state of seeing and hearing, I seemed to feel a slight anger. Could it be that there are other people alive here? Well, it seems to be in that direction. Due to hunger before, Luo Di temporarily put the anger behind him, and only remembered it again at this time. There is a special family in a small fishing village. They are also the richest family in this fishing village. Before they came here, they were traders, but due to the misfortune of encountering pirates at sea, the entire merchant ship was directly captured. Under the cover of the escort, the family drifted to this small fishing village on the escape boat. Perhaps because they were tired of the anxiety of doing business at sea, the family planned to live a quiet life, so they settled here. It is said that businessmen are profit-oriented, but through Xiao Luo Di's memory, it is difficult to find out the manifestations of their profit-oriented behavior. The hosts are all kind-hearted people. Occasionally, children from the village would go to their house to play, but they were not refused. Instead, they would serve some delicious snacks for the children to eat. The couple has a daughter who has a pretty good personality, gentle, without the wildness of the children in the fishing village, so everyone is still happy to play with her. Looking for vague memories, Luo Di came to the small bungalow located at the back of the fishing village. The originally exquisite flowers and ornaments around it had become tattered due to the pirates' looting. At the door, on the dry and dark blood stains, a tattered corpse was lying there quietly. As Luo Di approached, the smell of blood hit his face. He was stabbed more than 10 times, and the tragic scene was simply unbearable to look at. Luo Di closed his eyes, held his breath and concentrated, slightly moved the body to the side, and then walked into the house. If what I felt before is correct, there are indeed living people here. Either it is the owner of this family, or there are pirates. Of course, it may also be the surviving villagers of the fishing village. Of course, no matter what it is, Luo Di has the confidence to face it. The confidence is the devil fruit. However, his movements became lighter and lighter, making almost no sound as he moved. You can't go wrong with being cautious. Even if you can't defeat him, you can still attack first. The inside of the house is more messy than the outside. After searching for a while, Luo Di stopped in front of the only big bed in the house. He heard faint breathing. It seemed to be coming from under the bed. Looking for the sound, he slowly lay down. Through the faint light, Luo Di saw a blurry and petite figure. Aiko! Somehow, these two words came directly into his mind. After trying to call twice but getting no response, Luodi had no choice but to pull her out. The little girl is wearing an exquisite little dress and has long golden hair. She is very cute. It is not difficult to tell that she will definitely be a little beauty in the future. Hey, wake up! Aiko, wake up! After constant calling, Xiao Aiko finally woke up. Well, you are Luodi? Why did you come to play with me so early today? I haven't eaten yet. The soft voice revealed a little childishness. Looking at the innocent and cute little girl in front of him, Luodi didn't know how to answer her. However, time will not stand still just because Luodi doesn't speak. Some things, even if they are cruel, people have to face. Hey, it hurts so much! Little Aiko struggled to get up from the ground, and she frowned at the pain in the back of her neck. Mother, father! Xiao Aiko, who received no response, slowly walked out. Luodi watched her leave without stopping her, but just sighed deeply. The scene I will see later will probably have a great impact on the young little Aiko. Ah! Father! Mother! What's wrong with you guys? Little Aiko fell on her father. Why are you lying on the ground? It's cold on the ground. Get up quickly! You must be pretending to be asleep, don't lie to me, wake up quickly, woo-hoo, don't you want little Aiko? Little Aiko promises you that you will never snooze or steal food again in the future. Wake up! The childish cries almost spread throughout the small fishing village. But no one responded to her. The little girl, who was only 5 years old, felt despair for the first time. White clouds come and go with the blowing of the sea breeze. The sun gradually rises to the top of the head, and the temperature of the ground gradually increases. Luodi took Xiao Aiko, whose mood had stabilized, to the beach. There is a pirate flag planted here, which was left behind when the Iron Hand pirates left. Aiko, your parents knocked you out at the last moment and gave up their own lives to save you. They just hope that you can live well. However, I hope you must remember that it was the owner of this pirate flag who took away the lives of your parents. What they did must be engraved in your mind, and don't forget it. As you can see, this sea is so cruel. The weak can only cry helplessly, while the strong can take the lives of others. Aiko, do you want to continue like this? Luodi's series of words made the young Aiko not know how to answer, and there were some things that she couldn't understand. But she knows that she wants to become stronger, and she wants revenge. Luodi, I want to gain great power. I want to avenge my father and mother. The great changes brought about by the pirates made the young Aiko see what cruelty is, and also gave her her own goals. Okay, let's become stronger together and take revenge together. But first we have to let those uncles and aunts have a good sleep. Afterwards, Luodi took Aiko and walked towards the back mountain. Other side. A neat and orderly army slowly approached the small fishing village along the forest path. They are the 101st Marine Branch stationed in Dao's St. Valen, the capital of the Kingdom of Sitkaya. The leader is wearing a white coat, and the word, Justice, on the back is particularly eye-catching. Lieutenant Colonel Blake of the Marine Branch has a Western knife on his waist, and is a good knife user. At this time, he looked at the reward order in his hand with a headache. Damn it, McCarty, you're like a rat, don't let me catch you. Beep beep. At this time, the phone suddenly rang. Moses, Lieutenant Colonel Blake. Colonel Dill! About that village, you must not let it out, so I hope you can completely erase everything there. Is it for that damn face again? Is this still worthy of the justice we bear? Bratch, remember, this is an order. Beep. The caller was hung up, and Blake slammed the reward order to the ground, looking extremely ugly. What a ridiculous justice! After standing there for a long time, until Marine behind him asked, Blake could only sigh helplessly and continue moving forward. He was powerless against orders from his superiors. That poor little fishing village could not escape the fate of being destroyed. However, if there are still people alive, Blake will also help, which may alleviate his guilt. An hour later, the sound of artillery fire began to spread, and Luodi and Aiko, who were working hard to dig a hole, stopped what they were doing and looked behind them. Thick black smoke rushed up into the sky from bottom to top. Even under the scorching sun, the firelight in the small fishing village could not be covered up. However, when Luodi and Aiko hurried back, all they saw were Marine's retreating figure and the remains of several burned-out villages. Cremated. This approach may be able to prevent plagues caused by rotting corpses, but is it too cruel for this village that was built with great difficulty? On one side, Aiko fell softly to the ground. After violent mood swings and more than an hour of exertion, her body finally couldn't hold on anymore, and she passed out directly. Luodi lowered his head to check and found that at the corner of Xiao Aiko's eyes, 2 lines of tears were flowing down unconsciously. Why? Bending down to hold the little girl's petite body in his arms, Luodi walked step by step towards the mostly destroyed small bungalow at the back. After placing Xiao Aiko, Luodi discovered that the body originally left here was missing. It seems that Marine dragged him to a mass cremation. Luodi can't comment on Marine's behavior, but one thing is certain, he will not join Marine in the future. Marine's shortcomings are too obvious. The first level is suppressed by the first level, and at the top of the head are the celestial dragons who do all kinds of evil. Being a dog for the celestial dragons? He, Luodi, really couldn't do it. The house is burned down, what should we do with the food? Now, the most serious problem arises. That's food. After thinking about it, there was only one way. Hunt. In order to protect the safety of the small fishing village, the villagers set up several fences in the back mountains to intercept wild animals. And behind that fence is a land full of wild animals. Gora Forest. It has been untouched for many years and has given birth to countless wild animals. Luodi uses the power of the devil fruit as he walks. Enter the Shinigami state, release it, enter the Shinigami state, release it. In order to ensure that he can enter the Shinigami form as soon as possible, he tried again and again. Ouch! Suddenly, a wolf roared in the forest, and Luodi was instantly attracted to it. Through the trees, he finally saw its appearance. The gray fur is matched with a strong body of more than 1 meter long, and the sharp teeth add a bit of ruthlessness to it. Its target was a rabbit. The experienced jungle hunter pounced at the right time, swiftly and fiercely, and his sharp teeth easily pierced the rabbit's snow-white neck, while the rabbit only pounced twice. No more interest. To be honest, Luodi has only killed Kun so far. Facing this fierce hunter, he is a little at a loss. Snap. Not good! Inadvertently, his back foot broke a dry branch, and the crisp sound attracted the gray wolf's attention. It seems we have to fight. Facing the gray wolf's rapid approach, Luodi could only bite the bullet and prepare to fight. Shinigami form! The battle was imminent, and when the gray wolf was less than 4 meters away from Luodi, he directly entered the Shinigami form. At this time, the gray wolf was already in the air and was about to pounce on his face. Luodi grabbed the handle of the sickle with both hands, twisted his waist, exerted force with both hands, and the sharp light of the knife flashed past. Hot blood splashed all over Luodi's face. He somewhat underestimated the power of Shinigami's scythe. The gray wolf's left leg was cut off directly, and his body fell heavily to the side. However, Luodi did not stop there. He gritted his teeth and stepped hard on the ground. His small body jumped more than 2 meters high. The Shinigami scythe in his hand cut off the gray wolf's neck due to its inertia. It's so easy! Looking at the corpse of the gray wolf, even Luodi himself felt incredible. Entering Shinigami form, his body functions have been strengthened to a certain extent. The Shinigami's scythe is far sharper than he imagined, but it consumes too much energy when wielding it. But the devil fruit the original person ate seems to be more than that. It seems to have other effects. Recalling the moment when he killed the gray wolf just now, there seemed to be a warm current flowing down the handle of the knife to the whole body. The whole body became warm, and the physical strength was restored to a certain extent. Moreover, I wonder if it was his illusion. At that moment, his body was strengthened to a certain extent. Could it be that when I kill a powerful enemy with the Shinigami's scythe, it can give me some strength back? Forget it, let's forget about it for now, let's continue to find a few wild beasts and try it, and we'll find out. With this in mind, Luo Di first unlocked the Shinigami form and continued to go deeper into the forest. As for the dead gray wolf, we will deal with it when we come back later. Of course, it doesn't matter even if it is taken away. The power of the Shinigami form has been witnessed, and after that, food is not yet at hand. Not long after walking, Luo Di met a big guy this time. Known as the king of the forest, the giant white tiger is more than 2 meters long. Without any hesitation, Luo Di entered the Shinigami form directly. As the white tiger rushed forward, he quickly swung out the Shinigami scythe. But this time, he obviously underestimated the ferocity of the forest king. Although the Shinigami's scythe struck the waist and abdomen of the giant white tiger, its sharp claws did not stop and hit Luo Di's chest directly. The sharp claws covered the previous knife edge and left 3 deeper scars. Luo Di himself also flew backwards because of the huge force, but was finally stopped by a big tree on one side, and then he was able to stop. Puff! After all, it was a child's body, and the bones were almost falling apart. Luo Di vomited blood and stood up with force. Roar! A large gash was opened in the white tiger's waist and abdomen. The severe pain drove it into a frenzy, and it used its hind legs to fly towards Luo Di again. This time it will definitely tear this human brat to pieces. Rise! Luo Di kicked the ground with both feet, his body flew into the air, and he narrowly avoided the fierce attack. Immediately afterwards, his body reversed in the air again, and the Shinigami's scythe in his hand followed suit. Die! The blood-stained knife edge cut through the sky, slashed hard, and embedded itself in the white tiger's neck. At the same time, Luo Di released his Shinigami form, and the Shinigami's sickle disappeared instantly. The next moment he entered the Shinigami form again, and the sickle returned to his hand, and then he slashed hard again. After switching like this several times, Baihu finally couldn't bear it and collapsed to the ground. Luo Di gasped and gave Baihu the last blow. The familiar warm current flows from the handle of the knife to the limbs and bones, and continues to circulate until it completely disappears. Luo Di clenched his fists. Strength has increased. This can be felt intuitively. For example, if his original strength was 1, it is now at least 1.5. This growth can be said to be extremely terrifying. It's still a bit overwhelming. Fortunately, the Shinigami form can heal wounds, otherwise I might be the same as my predecessor. The tiger was so big that Luo Di had to give up part of it, and only took away 4 thighs. In order to leave here quickly, he did not release the Shinigami form this time. In Shinigami form, his speed is also extremely fast, 3 times that of his normal form. To be honest, the moment he saw the white tiger, at that moment, he wanted to escape. But who would have expected that it rushed forward without giving him this chance at all? Returning to the shabby little bungalow, Luo Di casually threw the 4 bloody tiger legs aside, washed himself at the beach, treated the wounds, and then entered the room. However, what came face to face was a petite figure. Aiko jumped directly into his arms. A series of blows made her subconsciously rely on this childhood friend in front of her. Wu Luo! Luo Di, I thought you were gone, I thought I was alone again. Luo Di endured the pain in her chest, forced a smile and touched her head to calm her uneasiness. Okay, stop crying, I won't leave. But my father, mother, uncles and aunts in the village have all disappeared. Will you disappear too one day? I'm really scared, Wu. Uncles and aunts just go to faraway places. As long as you grow up, they will come back to see you. Really? Real. Aiko, who was only 5 years old, was very fragile. The fire brought her to the brink of collapse again. The vows she made during the day were discarded in an unknown corner. Only Luo Di was her last straw. She wanted to hold on tightly. Aiko, you haven't eaten anything for a day. Let's go get something to eat. Looking at the young Aiko, Luo Di actually found the shadow of his past in her. In his previous life, his mother passed away early, and his father raised him alone. Later, due to overwork, he became ill and died when he graduated from college. Although he left with a smile, Luo Di cried very sadly that night. There is no doubt that compared to him, Aiko is even more miserable. This made him feel a twinge of love and pity. Moses, Lieutenant Colonel Blake, have you dealt with it? Blake was returning with Marine when the phone suddenly rang. He took a deep breath and suppressed his anger. Phew, it's done, there are no survivors. Dill laughed. Well done, please come back soon, there are still things for you to deal with here. Blake agreed with a sullen face, and then hung up the phone viciously. Damn Dill! Darkness is everywhere, and even Marine, who claims to be righteous, has trouble escaping. Night approaches quietly. The sea breeze carries salty and moist air blowing against the coast. Wave after wave of sea water washed over the rocks. On the coast, a bonfire lit up two lonely hearts. Luo Di, it smells so good. What kind of meat is this? It's so delicious. You will know when you become stronger. Start exercising with me from tomorrow. Well, I don't want it, it will turn ugly. Do you still want to see your uncle and aunt? Think. Then follow me and exercise. Well, okay. Luo Di gnawed on the roasted tiger leg and exchanged words with Aiko beside him. Time is still very long, and he will take revenge one day, even if they are not his parents, even if they have not gotten along for a day. Haiyuan calendar year 1512. Time flies by like a fleeting moment. 4 years is neither fast nor slow. Luo Di and Aiko insisted on exercising every day without stopping for a day. Nowadays, 9-year-old Aiko is 1.5 meters tall. After a long period of exercise, her originally fair skin has turned into a wheat color, healthy and energetic. Her delicate facial features and slightly childish face are eye-catching. One light. 4 years later, although Aiko is still a little girl, her strength is no longer the same as before. Fighting against several wolves alone is no longer a problem. Coupled with Luo Di's intentional or unintentional teachings, which allowed her to blindfold her eyes to avoid attacks, Aiko's reaction and perception were greatly improved. Although she was not able to use the color of sight, she still had some insights. As long as she keeps practicing like this, plus some kind of opportunity, she may be able to initially master the color of seeing and hearing. In comparison, the 10-year-old Luo Di is even more outstanding, with a height of 1.65 meters, a well-proportioned and just right figure, handsome facial features and lively eyebrows, making him a handsome boy. After 4 years of long-term research and development, Luo Di has basically become familiar with the power of devil fruit. He also figured out some things that were unclear before. First and foremost, at the beginning, when the original body died, the demonic power did leave the body, but just half of it was pulled back because of his arrival. In other words, half of the demon's power remained in his body, while the other half was integrated with his soul. He can release the demonic power in his soul and take on the form of an energy body he has seen for the first time. This part of the devil's power inherits the drawback of the devil fruit, which is the fear of sea water. However, when he releases that part of the demonic power, he will no longer be afraid of the sea water. Luo Di has tried this. Of course, there are also disadvantages. It takes a lot of physical energy to maintain the energy externalized, and the strength of the main body's Shinigami transformation will be greatly reduced. Luo Di gave the energy body a name, Demon Clone. The second point is that when the demon clone completely returns to the original body, there will be soul pressure at that moment. The effect is similar to Conqueror's. In addition, there is also the effect of seeing and hearing color. After constant attempts, Luo Di can now actively trigger it even without going through the demon clone. It can be said that he has initially mastered Conquerors and observation. The third point is also a very important point. When the Shinigami's scythe kills an enemy, it will feed energy back to the host and strengthen its body. In the past 4 years, Luo Di has continuously killed beasts in the Gora forest, and his physical fitness has increased rapidly. Now, even with his physical strength, he can kill a tiger with one punch. His strong body prompted him to exercise his legs and pay more attention to speed. Marine 6 style mid-shaving involves stepping on the ground dozens of times at high speed to produce an explosive reaction force to move at high speed within 0.36 seconds, making it seem like it disappears. After constant training, Luo Di finally mastered shaving. In fact, shaving is not difficult. Once your physical fitness reaches a certain level, it will be easy to use it. The fourth and final point is Shinigami and Semi-Shinigami. In the past 4 years, Devil Fruit has been continuously developed by Luo Di. Just a year ago, the Shinigami robe appeared. The Shinigami robe is invulnerable to fire and water, is not afraid of thunder, and allows the user to fly. It is a concrete manifestation of the initial mastery of Shinigami. Mastering the Shinigami robe also represents the Devil Fruit's recognition of Luo Di. And the Semi-Shinigami transformation is a matter of course. Semi-Shinigami transformation allows Luo Di to summon Shinigami robe or Shinigami scythe alone, which can greatly reduce physical consumption. Finally, Luo Di also learned some special skills, powerful skills that can only be displayed by the power of Shinigami. 4990, 4991, 4992, 4999, 5000. After completing 5,000 slashes, Aiko wiped the sweat from his forehead and ran to Luo Di impatiently. Brother Luo Di, how long does it take to leave? Luo Di put weights on his feet, stood up slowly, shook his legs, and looked at the sky again. It was cloudless, and it was indeed a good weather for traveling. Say goodbye to them properly, I'm afraid it will be difficult to come back in the future. For 4 years, Luo Di and Aiko never left this small fishing village. Even Luo Di, a visitor from another world, had some feelings for this place. There is one more bond. Aiko, the sister in his heart. In fact, Aiko didn't want to call him brother at first, but she finally compromised after being suppressed by force. After bidding farewell to the villagers, Luo Di and Aiko walked step by step on the path Marine left 4 years ago. Their destination was the kingdom of Sitkia. Luo Di also has his own plans for the future. First, start as a pirate hunter and kill pirates to get bounties and accumulate money. Well, let's talk about it later. The town of Drata is backed by the Gora Forest and is connected to the west gate of the capital city of Dao's St. Valen. Businessmen, pirates, marines, etc. all gather here. If you want to get information, the best place for Luo Di without Bailey is the bar. There are not many entertainment methods in this world, and bars are undoubtedly one of them. Brother Luo Di, are you sure you want to go there? At the door of a bar, Aiko held Luo Di's arm, her face slightly red. She didn't blame her for thinking too much. Just now, she saw with her own eyes an uncle walking in with a gorgeous woman in his arms, and even kissed the female companion when he passed by her. How could Aiko, who had never had any contact with men and women and was as simple as a blank slate, bear this? How about you wait for me outside for a while? Luo Di was also a little embarrassed. To be honest, taking my sister to a bar might spoil the child. Forget it, I'll stay with you. I don't know if it was because she was worried or something, but after struggling for a moment, Aiko decided to go in with Luo Di. Entering the bar, the strong smell of tobacco and alcohol hit your face, and the sounds of chaotic conversations could be heard. Little brother, little sister, what would you like to drink? The bar owner is a fat uncle with a friendly appearance. However, are there any good people who deal with pirates all year round? I'm afraid it's all a disguise. We are here to find someone. Luo Di didn't want to talk too much, so he just found an excuse to excuse himself, and then pulled Aiko straight towards the inner room. The fat boss looked at the two people's backs, took out the phone from underneath, and started talking quietly with someone. Haha, 1-200 W. Bailey, Captain Liba's bounty has increased again. If you asked me, it won't be a problem to conquer West Blue in a while. Follow our Captain Liba and enjoy the hot and spicy food. I'll do it first as a token of respect. Go on, brothers! With drunken eyes, a little pirate noticed Aiko, who had just walked in. He smiled and whispered to the bearded man sitting in the center. Captain Liba, look at that little girl over there, how does she look like? The bearded man subconsciously looked in the direction of his finger. Taking a closer look, it was a little girl. Then he took a sip of wine and said with an evil smile, "You still understand me, go and catch me." Born. Luo Di, who had a sense of knowledge, naturally heard the conversations of several people. When he learned that the rough man known as Captain Liba wanted to attack Aiko, who was still a little girl, an unknown fire suddenly emerged. He had never been so angry. "Cole, prepare to kill!" Hearing this, Aiko was a little surprised, but it wasn't that he was afraid of killing people. After all, he had just come in. However, she has killed hundreds of wild beasts in the past few years. Although it was her first time to kill someone, she had no objection. Besides, she would have to avenge her parents and kill people in the future, and she would not be able to escape after all. "Do it!" The moment the little pirate got up, Luo Di and Aiko also moved. "Shave!" Luo Di turned into a black shadow and disappeared from his seat. On the other side, Captain Liba was picking up the wine glass, and with just a blink of an eye, a figure appeared in front of him. Before he could say anything, he saw the figure holding his hands empty, and a black sickle nearly 1.5 meters tall suddenly appeared. "That's right, it's exactly 1.5 meters, Shinigami's scythe has growth potential. At this time, it is longer and more lethal than it was 4 years ago. The person coming is none other than Luo Di. Ghost Scythe Shocking Slash!" The Shinigami's sickle was swung out fiercely and quickly withdrawn as if to relieve its force. The instantaneous burst of power mixed with the power of Shinigami caused the air to vibrate rapidly, followed by another black slash at an extremely fast speed. As soon as the slashing attack arrived, Liba rolled his eyes and fell on the sofa as if he was unconscious. From the outside, Liba was intact, as if the slash had only a visual effect. But only Luo Di knew that Liba was dead, and the blow just now shattered his brain. Then, there was another instant, and Luo Di returned to his original position. The whole process happened in less than 2 seconds, so incredibly fast that almost no one noticed. In comparison, Aiko is not that fast. "Hey, little beauty, our captain asked you to come over and accompany us, As soon as the little pirate approached, he was greeted with a fatal knife edge. Aiko slashed and slapped her, without any hesitation, and solved it in an instant. Bang! "Taboo, keep your voice down." "Hey, Taboo, what's wrong with you?" A pirate who was drinking was alerted by the loud noise. He was about to scold him, but he saw his companion lying in a pool of blood. And the harmless-looking little girl was holding a blood-stained knife in her hand. "That's okay." The other members of the Raiba pirates were immediately shocked and furious. "How dare you? Does a little girl dare to challenge pirates these days? Do you really think they are vegetarians? MD, little girl, you are seeking death." A pirate who was friends with Taibu picked up a western knife on one side and slashed at Aiko with a fierce look on his face. Aiko's expression remained unchanged. She easily dodged with a slight tilt of her body, and then she raised her sword and chopped down another pirate. Over the years, Aiko has fought against ferocious beasts, and the level of danger alone is far beyond the level of these little pirates who only know how to eat, drink, and have fun. At the age of 9, his strength may not be as strong as that of an adult, but when it comes to skills, it is really beyond the reach of ordinary people. "Brothers, come on, let this brat see the power of our Raiba pirates. Keep her alive and entertain her well later. Brother's big iron rod is very thick, please bear with it." The pirates came up one after another, and the Bipupi came up. Aiko danced in the crowd, and every time the knife fell, a pirate fell to the ground. Seeing that nearly 20 of his companions were about to be killed, the vice-captain sitting next to Liba couldn't sit still. "Hey, Liba, wake up!" He shook Liba's body, but Liba didn't react at all. How is it possible? Liba is dead." He moved slightly closer and was horrified to find that Liba was not breathing. "Run! There are experts here." The deputy captain, who was a little drunk at first, broke into a cold sweat. He didn't care about the life or death of other pirates, and ran outside without saying a word. "Did you find it?" Luo Di raised his eyes slightly. So what? Ghost sighed shocking slash. The black slash passed through the vice captain who had just stepped out of the threshold, but his body still crossed the threshold. 1, 2, 3. Luo Di counted 3 times silently, and a sound of landing came from outside. At this time, Aiko wiped the bloody knife with the square cloth on the table and sat down next to Luo Di. Phew, it's my first time to kill someone, so I'm still a little unaccustomed to it. Luo Di turned his head and saw that Aiko's pretty face was a little pale. Imagine them as, beasts, maybe it will feel better. Besides, it is the first time after all, so it is normal to be a little nervous. Aiko nodded and looked around again. Now that everyone has run away, how can we get information? Or should we go to other bars? Luo Di shrugged, then stood up and walked to Liba. Our goal has been achieved. The bar owner watched Luo Di and Aiko leave and touched the cold sweat on his forehead. 2 evil gods, 1,200,000 pirates were killed by them. Fortunately, the people I called haven't come yet, otherwise. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but shudder. Marine garrison in the town of Drada. This is 6 million Bailey bounty. Luo Di took a stack of banknotes with a face value of 10,000 belly, glanced at them, and threw them directly to Aiko without counting them. Liba, who originally had a reward of 1,200,000 Bailey, only received half of the reward. Although the reward list states that it does not matter whether he is dead or alive, there is no doubt that the value of a dead pirate is far less than that of a living one. Did you really kill Liba? Young Marine was still a little unbelievable that he repeated the same words 3 times. The 2 people in front of me are only 11 or 12 years old at most, right? Can you really kill a pirate with such a high bounty? Luo Di doesn't have any hostility toward Marine at the moment. After all, who would have trouble with money? However, it is hard to say in the future. He may encounter Tianlong people one day and kill 1 or 2, and it will be inevitable that he will be wanted by then. Seeing Luo Di nod, the young Marine rubbed his hands and asked tentatively, Then, do you want to join us, Marine? However, Luo Di took Aiko and left without looking back. Hey, wait, I haven't finished speaking yet. After purchasing a few sets of clothes, Luo Di couldn't help but ask Aiko, who was standing aside, thinking of what the young Marine said. Cole, do you want to join Marine? Luo Di asked this question after thinking for a long time. Because he was used to being restrained in his previous life, Luo Di yearned for the sea and wanted to go to different places to experience different scenery. This was often accompanied by great risks. If Aiko followed him, he would probably have to live a life of licking blood on the tip of a knife. In contrast, Marine is different. Although it is restricted by various regulations, safety can still be guaranteed during the recruiting period, and it can also master various abilities. As long as you have good talent, you can learn the 6 Marine styles and even hockey. After completing the course, self-protection can still be achieved during the first half of the Great Voyage. However, Aiko flatly refused. No, unless you go too. Well, I'm afraid this won't work. Didn't you say you would never leave me? Brother Luo Di, couldn't you have lied to me? Is there any? Yes, you can't get rid of me anyway. Ahem. Just at this moment, a carriage came quickly. The driver was wearing silver armor, his face was completely covered by a helmet, and he was waving the whip in his hand. Drive, get out of the way! Behind it, a group of men who looked like mafiosi were chasing after them quickly on horseback, their guns firing bullets all the time. Occasionally, a few unlucky guys would get shot and fall to the ground in pain on the roadside. Get out of my way and stay out of the way! Suddenly, another burly man holding a giant axe rushed up from behind the mafia team. His huge size directly knocked a mafia man and the horse under his crotch to the ground. Run quickly, they are betrayers! It turned out to be the giant axe Nidfa, the second in command of the underground force Betrayer. Rumor has it that he once killed a pirate with a bounty of tens of millions with an axe, and also destroyed a warship. No Marine on board survived. Why is he here? Who are they hunting for? That's the royal symbol. The icon on the back of the carriage in front actually belongs to the Sikkia royal family. Oh my God, what happened? Big news, betrayers are hunting down members of the Sitkia royal family. Is this going to change? As the giant axed Nitva and the royal carriage went away, people in the whole street became restless. Kur, let's go and take a look. With the black robe on his body, Luo Di entered the semi-Shinigami transformation. Then he put one hand around Aiko and jumped onto the roof with a slight jump. Then his body turned into an afterimage and landed on another roof in the blink of an eye. There is a trail behind the town of Drada, which connects the town of Arada. Not good! The guard Captain Cohen, who was driving the carriage, immediately felt something was wrong. The carriage was shaking violently and seemed to be about to fall apart. Immediately, he turned around and opened the curtains, and what came into view was a girl wearing an exquisite sky blue dress. The girl is wearing a white gauze, but her beauty cannot be concealed. Princess, I'm sorry! Feeling that the carriage was shaking more and more, Cohen gritted his teeth, held the girl in his arms, and jumped out of the carriage. At this moment, the carriage suddenly fell apart, and the horses fell to the side of the road due to imbalance. Soon, the mafia caught up. Nitva, the leader, turned over and dismounted. The giant axe in his hand glowed coldly under the sunlight. Ha ha, Cohen, where are you going now? I advise you to hand over Princess Fina honestly. If I am in a good mood, I might be able to spare your life. Swinging the axe, Nitva laughed and approached slowly. On the other side, Cohen straightened up and blocked Princess Fina behind him. Don't be afraid, Your Highness Princess, I will definitely take you out of here safely. However, Princess Fina's beautiful willow eyebrows frowned slightly, and a hint of worry flashed through her star-like eyes. She was silent for a moment, and then she bit her silver teeth and pulled Cohen's arm tightly. Grandpa Cohen, let me go with him. Your Highness, I am sorry that I cannot agree. If you are caught by them, there will be no hope for the kingdom of Sitkia. Cohen shook off Princess Fina's hand, took out the sword from his waist, and rushed towards Nitva resolutely. Stop, let me come! Nitva waved his hand to signal his men not to take action, then roared and rushed forward. The giant axe and the long knife connected, and the strength of the two was almost equal, and it was difficult to tell the winner for a while. No one knew that everything that happened here was under the eyes of two outsiders. Brother Luo Di, that person seems to be a princess. Do we want to help? Aiko can't see and hear things yet, so naturally she can't hear the conversation between Fina and Cohen, but Fina is indeed dressed like a princess. Princess? Hey, don't talk about princess, even if the king is there, it has nothing to do with us. Of course, if the guard named Cohen is good and can defeat Nitva, what if we go to make up for it? I pick up a favor for free, don't give it up for free. However, killing enemies can improve strength. For Luo Di, this is the most important thing. Aiko nodded in understanding. Finally, the battle heated up. After hundreds of blows, Nitva had 3 stab wounds on his body, while Cohen only had a hole in his armor. It was clear who was stronger and who was weaker. Snap! Suddenly, Nitva snapped his fingers, and his strong body took a step back. Bang, bang, bang! As if they had received some kind of instruction, the Mafia opened fire, and bullets were accurately fired at Cohen. Clang, clang, clang! Cohen also reacted quickly and blocked all the bullets with his long knife. At this time, Nitva roared and rushed forward. The huge axe carrying great power slid down against the long knife. After blocking several bullets, Cohen caught the axe with great difficulty. Drink! Immediately, Nitva raised his right foot and kicked Cohen's left leg. He raised the giant axe in his hand fiercely, and then slashed it down hard. The sharp axe cut through the armor and continued to penetrate deeper, leaving a huge wound on Cohen's chest. Seeing this, Princess Fina could only let out a cry of sorrow. Grandpa Cohen! Oh! Cohen roared angrily, turned the long knife in his hand, and stabbed straight out. The blow with all his strength actually penetrated Nitva's body. Damn it, shoot me! Nitva endured the pain and kicked Cohen away, angrily yelling at his men. Just at this time, a sudden change occurred. Ghost side shocking slash. The huge black slash almost covered the entire field and dissipated in front of Cohen with great accuracy. Bang, bang, bang! Nitva and the mafiosi who were about to shoot fell one after another. Suddenly, there seemed to be conversations coming from a distance. Brother Luodi, I don't even know how many are left for me. Definitely next time. Next time, and next time. You lie to me every time. A boy and a girl? Seeing Luodi and Aiko approaching, Cohen, who was lying half-stretched on the ground, opened his eyes wide and climbed up with difficulty, regardless of the pain in his body. At this time, Princess Fina ran over and hurriedly helped him. Grandpa Cohen, you are injured! Cohen raised his visor, revealing his old face, with wrinkles showing the traces of time. Ahem, it's nothing serious. He shook his head. The scene before him left him a little confused. Looking around, all the mafia including Nitva were lying on the ground without any sign of getting up. They all seemed to be not breathing, so they were probably dead. And the person who caused this scene is undoubtedly the young girl who is approaching. What was that black slash just now? Some are like flying slashes that only a swordsman can perform. Cohen had the privilege of seeing it when he was young. As soon as Luodi approached, he asked for payment. Hey, old man, we have taken care of these people, what can you give? Treasures or something more valuable? Princess Fina, who was only 13 years old, saw this young man who suddenly appeared in front of her speaking rudely to someone she respected, and immediately scolded him angrily. What old man? Listen up, this is Grandpa Cohen, the captain of the palace guard of Sitkia Kingdom. Cohen is the one who has been with Fina for the longest time. She already regards Cohen as her grandfather from the bottom of her heart, so naturally she can't stand others being rude to her. However, Cohen waved his hand, looked at Luodi, and accepted the words. Little hero, the princess is too young and ignorant. Please don't mind the rude words. Let me introduce you solemnly first. I am the captain of the palace guard of the kingdom of Sitkia Cohen. Next to me is Princess Sitkia, Vladimir Fina. The two people in front of them showed extraordinary strength, and seemed to have no malicious intent, so Cohen did not hide his identity. Aiko interrupted disdainfully. She is young? Can she be as young as us? Before, she thought about saving the princess in front of her, but now it seems that, I dare say Brother Luodi, she takes back her previous thoughts. Ha ha! Luodi snickered secretly. Aiko was still a little girl after all, she still had some innocence, and they actually started arguing over their age. Cohen ignored Aiko and the little princess and looked at Luodi closely. If I guess correctly, both of you use knives, right? The wound hurt slightly, and he paused for a moment before continuing. Actually, there are two extraordinary famous swords in the treasury of our kingdom of Sitkia. The words were provoked, and Luodi was also a little curious. What knife? Cohen's face was solemn. A good sharp knife works 50 times, blowing wind and flying snow. According to different levels, knives are divided into quick knives, good quick knives, great quick knives, and supreme quick knives. Knives of this level, like the Liang Kuai knife, are sold for upwards of 10 million belly, and they are often expensive but not marketable. It is not easy to encounter two good and fast knives in West Blue, so Luodi asked. What are the conditions? Got the point. A flash of light flashed across Cohen's cloudy eyes, but he hid it well. As a reward for killing these mafia gangsters, I can give you a hair dryer. However, the current situation in the palace is very complicated, and it is difficult to get the hair dryer. The corner of Luodi's mouth curled up slightly. What if I want both knives? He has a huge appetite, but it's not impossible. It just depends on whether the young man in front of him has that ability. Cohen lowered his head and pondered slightly. After a long time, he slowly spoke. Actually, the kingdom of Sitkia is facing a major crisis. Minister Zwa Rihaku is preparing to steal the country. He secretly united with the underground organization betrayers and kidnapped the family members of loyal ministers in the court to control them. After nearly 10 years of hard work, he has solved some unstable factors step by step, and his reputation among the people is getting better and better. There is no one who opposes him in the palace, and the common people are very satisfied with him. At this time, what will happen if His Majesty the King unfortunately dies? Then there is only Her Majesty the Princess. Her Majesty is Your Majesty's only bloodline, but Her Majesty the Princess has a marriage contract with the Prince of neighboring Kionia, and this marriage contract was induced by the left minister Rihaku 5 years ago. At that time, under the guidance of Rihaku, His Majesty the King met with the visiting young Prince of Kionia. He was very impressed with him, and the young prince also proposed the idea of marriage at the right time. The young princess did not know what is marriage. I agreed in a daze. This morning, if Her Royal Highness hadn't overheard the news that Rihaku had stolen the country and planned to send her to Kionia, everything would have been over. Having said this, Cohen wiped the corners of his eyes, and tears fell down at some point. Princess Fina, who was supporting him, also lowered her head slightly and sobbed gently. Stealing the country? What a big deal. Luo Di crossed his arms over his chest and frowned slightly. So, the left minister is not only connected with the betrayer, but also has some kind of deal with the kingdom of Kionia? It seems that it is a little difficult to get those two knives. Cohen looked sad. That's right. Luo Di walked back and forth and suddenly raised his head. That left minister has been planning for a long time and is involved with many forces. The energy behind it is unimaginable. How can you resist? Cohen gritted his teeth. There are 3,000 people in my direct troops, and they only follow my instructions. Luo Di smiled disdainfully. That's it. Maybe your direct troops have been controlled while you were escaping. Cohen was silent for a long time, then Wing said, Our kingdom of Sikia is a member of the world government, and they will definitely help us. Luo Di continued to retort. But it involves the kingdom of Kionia. They are also a member country, right? Will the world government still care about it? Cohen had nothing to say. Basically all roads were blocked. After a long silence, Luo Di spoke. Actually, I can help you. But there is a condition. Cohen immediately raised his head, his originally pale face flushed with excitement. What conditions? Only after experiencing despair can we know how valuable hope is. Cohen didn't think that the young man in front of him would deceive him at all. Because he has that strength. Swordsman. These 2 words alone are enough to rank at the top of West Blue. In one day, let the people of Sikia Kingdom know about the left minister Rihaku's plan to steal the country, and let Princess Fina come forward to prove it, and organize a continuous crusade. As soon as these words came out, Cohen was in trouble. How can it be done by asking Her Royal Highness the Princess to come forward? Just when he was planning to further negotiate, Princess Fina, who had been silent, suddenly stood up. Yes, we agree to your terms. But... Okay, Grandpa Cohen, stop talking, it's settled. Aiko wrinkled her little nose and hummed. This is how you look like a princess. Luo Di stood aside, smiling and saying nothing. As far as he is concerned, in West Blue, which is not very strong in overall strength, even if he is allowed to fight against the country, it is no problem. The Shinigami's scythe can not only strengthen his body but also replenish his physical strength after killing the enemy. In terms of protracted battles, it is quite buggy. However, if you want to fight against the country's popular leftist ministers, it is necessary to occupy the righteousness. Although he didn't care, Luo Di didn't want to get an inexplicable reputation. Even if you have to carry it, you have to be a member of the royal family of this country. After all, they were the ones who asked him to take action. He wouldn't care what the consequences would be. He is only responsible for fighting to become stronger. Recently, his strength has basically stagnated. This sudden war can be said to be a timely blessing for him. Kingdom of Sikia. Capital city, Dao's St. Valen. Royal Palace. In a secret room. The dim light reflected 2 figures. The shorter figure knocked on the table, his voice rising and falling, and he was obviously a little irritated. Is there no news about Princess Fina and that old guy yet? The taller figure exhaled a plume of white smoke. Nitfid discovered their whereabouts, and should be able to bring them back soon. The short figure slammed the table. Do you know how long I have been planning? 10 years, a whole 10 years. I have been groveling all day long and having to maintain my external image. I have had enough. At the critical moment, that dead girl actually came out to cause trouble for me. I really want to kill her with 1,000 knives. The tall figure flicked the ashes from his cigarette and said calmly, Lehaku, don't forget your identity. You are just His Majesty Lipland's dog. Even if you become the king of the kingdom of Sitkia in the future, you will always be just a dog. Take a good look at yourself. Don't think too highly of you. His Majesty Lipland can lift you to this position. Correspondingly, he can also pull you down easily. Don't do anything too outrageous. Considering our many years of friendship, this is my last advice to you. The tall figure slowly stood up, pressed the unfinished cigarette butt on the back of Lehaku's hand, and then walked straight out. Hiss. Lehaku took a breath of cold air. The cigarette butt burned the back of his hand black, and the pain spread rapidly. After confirming that the man was gone, he kicked the table over. Damn it, damn it, damn it! Feasel, you dare to do this to me! Who do you think you are? One day I will kill you all, just wait! The two people talking in the secret room were the left minister Lehaku and the leader of the betrayers, Feasel. There is an orphanage in the town of Arata specifically for orphans. The dean is an old woman with white hair. It's hard to believe that she used to be Princess Fina's wet nurse. Grandma Agus, I'm here to see you! In the house, Princess Fina and Dean Agus, who were very affectionate, talked about the past. Outside the house, Aiko is playing with the children. Luodi drank tea. It's been a long time since I felt so comfortable. Looking at Aiko, who was smiling like a flower, he couldn't help but sigh. Aiko is still a little girl. On the side, Koen also took a sip of tea. Aren't you only 10 years old? However, you are really mature. If you don't look at it, you are completely an adult. Luodi shook his head. You have no idea what I have gone through. An entire village was massacred by pirates. It's hard not to think about it. Although Luodi himself had not witnessed the massacre, the tragedy of the village was still vivid in his mind. Okay, let's not talk about this anymore. Have you figured out how to notify the entire country? Koen never expected that the young man in front of him would have such a tragic experience, but he did not continue to ask further. It's already being implemented, just wait and see. Time passed quickly, and a conspiracy that had been woven for several years enveloped the entire kingdom of Sitkia. Outside the port town connected to the south gate of the capital, a dozen ships quietly approached the coastal port. Mafia men in black suits stood on the deck, each equipped with sophisticated weapons, either knives or guns. There is no doubt that this is a well-trained team. On the main ship, the third leader of the betrayer, Simonton, jumped directly onto the port. From behind, the deputy hurriedly spoke out to stop him. Sir Manton, Boss Feasel told us not to act rashly. Simonton pressed the brim of his hat, and a slightly lazy voice came out. Oh, it's okay. I won't take action until tomorrow. I've been addicted twice. As soon as he finished speaking, the person disappeared. The deputy touched his forehead helplessly. Gamble again. On the other side, there is Duzva Shinglan, the capital of the kingdom of Sitkia. Carter, are you ready? Kindness. Where's Xena? Everything is ready. Okay, I'll count to 123, and then we'll get through the projection phone together, and then we'll go straight to the dean's grandma for a meeting. Receive. 1, 2, 3, run. The projection phone placed in the shadow was suddenly connected, and small figures rushed into the crowd of people coming and going, and soon disappeared. Virtual big screens appear in various places, streets, bars, squares. Is this a projector phone bug? I remember there was no such thing installed here. Above are Guard Captain Keen and Princess Faye. Fina. Two figures appeared on the screen. It was Fina and Koen. Princess Fina and Captain Koen appear together. Is something big going to happen? Who knows? There should be something important to announce. Princess Fina is so beautiful. Gigi, since she is a princess, she should be very valuable. On the screen, Fina turned sideways, as if confirming something, then nodded again, and then turned her head to face everyone. Dear citizens of the Kingdom of Sitkaya, I am Vladimir Fina, and I have several important things to announce. Almost all forces noticed this sudden change. 101 Marine Branch. Hearing a knock on the door, Colonel Blake, who was sorting out documents, stopped. What's up? A young man, Marine, walked in. Report, Colonel Blake, Princess Fina has appeared. Oyamo, a reporter from World Economic News, kept taking photos and looked excited. Stealing the country? Boss Morgans must be notified about this matter. Then he quickly took out the phone bug. Moses. In Sitkaya Palace, Rihaka answered the phone that was ringing very irritably. What's the matter? Tell me quickly. A slightly panicked voice came from the other side. Lihaku, no, something happened. Outside the port, pirate ships flying different pirate flags were slowly approaching. They had just received the news from their subordinates, and were ready to take a share of the pie. More and more forces are involved. The entire kingdom of Sitkaya is in the eye of this storm, and a war is inevitable. TSK, I forgot about this. There is something called a projection phone bug in this world. Everything that happened on the roof and below was seen by Luo Di. The purpose of coming here was to see how Fina and Cohen were preparing. Unexpectedly, he saw this scene. However, to ask a child from an orphanage to do such a thing is really a bit beyond my expectation. Nowadays, all the city gate guards in the kingdom must have been replaced. If you want to place phone bugs in the city, it will definitely not work to let Fina and Cohen come. Compared to adults, the probability of children being suspected is very slim, and they can easily sneak into the royal city. As for trust, there is no need to worry about this. The director of the orphanage is Fina's wet nurse, and they have known each other for nearly 10 years. Their relationship cannot be summed up in just 1 or 2 sentences. Under the circumstances, almost no one can escape Luodi's perception. He noticed that more and more people with powerful aura seem to be coming around. There are more and more people from the Mafia, Marine, and Pirates. It looks like there will be plenty to play with tomorrow. When Lodi gets the Shinigami Devil Fruit, killing is inevitable. The more you kill, the stronger you become. However, what he will carry out will be a righteous killing. Everything is under control. Tomorrow his strength will reach another level. The capital of Sitkaya was called the St. Varen. The capital has 4 gates, namely the East Gate, West Gate, South Gate, and North Gate. Each gate is connected to a small town. The North Gate leads to Port Town, the West Gate leads to Drata Town, and the North Gate leads to Arata Town. At this moment, 3 carriages were speeding towards the North Gate. Who? Agus, who was driving, was startled by the sudden appearance of a figure. Grandma Agus, it's me. Luodi's voice was gentle, signaling her not to be nervous. It turns out it's you. I was shocked. No, why are you here? Only then did Agus suddenly realize why Luodi appeared here. Shouldn't he be in Arata Town? Luodi smiled softly, but pointed his hand forward. Grandma Agus, you should be aware of the situation in the capital. The gatekeeper's place is not easy to pass through. If you don't believe it, take a closer look. Looking up, it was obvious that the huge North City Gate was very crowded. There are many people who want to come in, and many people who want to go out. This resulted in congestion at the city gates. And this situation is also the most likely to cause riots. Just like now. Bang. MD, if you don't want to live anymore, dare to squeeze lousy. Someone couldn't help but shoot. One person firing a gun often triggers a chain reaction. Bang, bang, bang. More and more people opened fire, turning the city gate used for passage into a battlefield. Luodi sat on the rear passenger seat and looked forward with interest. Grandma Agus, you'd better find a safe place to stop for a while. You won't be able to get out for a while. Argus also understands this truth, but as time goes by, the entire royal city will become more and more dangerous. Pirates, mafia, and even human traffickers groups will all gather here. She didn't have anything to worry about. What she was afraid of was the helpless children behind her. However, there is no way to get out by force. Aegu, Aang, find a place to stop. Aegu and Aang are the temporary drivers of the other two carriages, and they are also the children adopted by Aegis more than 10 years ago. Now they have grown up and can take charge of their own business, but they have never left, and have always been with Argus. Good! Finding an empty alley, Aegu and Aang drove the carriage in one after another, followed closely by Aegis. Finally, the 3 carriages stopped in a row. The sudden stop startled the children in the carriage. At Aegis's signal, Aegu and Aang helped comfort him. Just at this moment, a group of people walked up the street. A rough estimate was that there were 30 or 40 people. Judging from their attire, it is not difficult to tell that they are a group of pirates. The leader is a one-eyed dragon, yes, just one eye. A minion ran up to him in 3 steps and then 2 steps. Boss, you, look over there, there is a carriage, do you want it, grab it! He stuttered and struggled to speak. The burly one-eyed dragon picked out his ears, obviously impatient, and kicked him aside. Go away, that you, and you, come here and grab the carriage inside for me. The one-eyed dragon pointed at 2 pirates casually. Yes, boss. The 2 little pirates who were pointed out were holding knives and walking towards the alley with strange smiles. Shave! Luo Di stepped in front of the 2 of them and blocked their way. You 2, where are you going? Do you want me to give you a ride? The 2 little pirates were startled. After taking a closer look, what appeared in front of him was a hairless kid, and he instantly became angry from embarrassment. If you dare to provoke us, kid, I think you are simply seeking death. Don't be too harsh, you won't get a good price if you are missing arms or legs. That's right, then take it easy. Luo Di couldn't listen anymore. He suddenly raised his right hand, bent his index finger, and then flicked it lightly, causing an invisible wave of air to rise in the air and splash forward like a bullet. Bang! The sound stopped suddenly. You, what did you do? The little pirate was startled, but found that his companion had disappeared. When he turned around, he saw him lying quietly on the ground 6 or 7 meters away, falling into a deep sleep like a baby. Shut his mouth for him. Luo Di blew on his fingers, feeling slightly hot. That blow just now, he called it one line of sky. The index finger and thumb rub against each other with great force, instantly rolling up the air, and then using the power of Shinigami to guide it, they impact forward in a perfect straight line, with enough power to penetrate wood and stone. The little pirate took this blow, and his body was probably penetrated. Just 2 words, transparent. You, wait for me, boss, this is bad. Not to mention, the remaining little pirate was quite clever. When he saw something was wrong, he quickly informed his boss. This is much smarter than people who only know how to do it with their heads covered. Don't be anxious, take your time one by one. Luo Di raised his hand, and another. One line of sky shot out. The little pirate's body was penetrated directly, but he did not stop there. Instead, his body flew forward as if it was stuck by something. Go away, you loser, you can't handle even a small thing. The one-eyed dragon was extremely angry and kicked him aside. At this time, Luo Di walked forward unhurriedly. One-eyed Marty, one-eyed pirate ship captain, has a bounty of 20 million Baileys. There were many reward lists posted at the door of the bar, and Luo Di wrote them down one by one, and one-eyed Marty was among them. The pirate with a bounty of 20 million Bailey can already occupy a place in West Blue. Bah, little devil, let me teach you how to write the word death. Marty blew out the almost finished cigarette on the ground, but reached behind his back with his right hand. Bang, 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 bang. A repeating pistol was held in his hand and 4 shots were fired instantly. The bullets were fired at precise and tricky angles, hitting the joints of the limbs. However, Luo Di raised his right hand, as if there was some kind of strange force field, and the bullet stopped moving, just hovering in the air. Go! With a light wave of his hand, the bullet shot in the opposite direction at a faster speed. Marty was worthy of being a pirate with a bounty of 2,000,000 Baileys. He reacted surprisingly quickly and leaned back to barely escape. Are you a devil fruit user? When he stood up straight again, a cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Who would you say is the most difficult to deal with? Definitely a devil fruit user with all kinds of weird abilities. What's more, the gun is Marty's best weapon, and bullets can be bounced. How can he fight? To deal with you, I don't need to use the power of the devil fruit yet. It's just right. Let me test my current physical strength with you. After 4 years of training, coupled with the power fed back by the Shinigami's scythe, Luodi's physical strength is basically comparable to that of the Major General of Marine Headquarters. Shave! Like the wind under his feet, Luodi's body turned into an afterimage, moving so fast that it was almost impossible to catch it with the naked eye. Damn it, where are the people? Marty's remaining single eye looked left and right, and he could barely see a black shadow. Behind him, his men fell one by one. Screams came and went. Ah, die! Bang, bang, bang. Seeing the last subordinate fall to the ground, Marty's eyes were bloodshot, and he was obviously extremely angry. Then he pulled out a gun from his waist, and kept firing into the air with both guns in his hands. Hoo-ho! When the last bullet was fired, Marty had difficulty breathing due to emotion. Finally die! Well, those pirates are all dead! The voice came from behind. Marty's body trembled, and then he turned around violently, and kicked out with a very clumsy voluptuous kick. Snap! Luodi raised his foot to block it, and then struck out with his right palm. Marty was like a bowstring pulled by a huge force, and his body flew backwards like a cannonball. When his consciousness completely dissipated, his body seemed to be still in place. It's not difficult to deal with a 20,000,000 pirate, but I'm afraid it's hard to get the bounty. The Marine 101 branch currently stationed in the Royal City is probably in chaos. Back in the alley, Argus glanced at Luodi, said nothing, turned around and walked towards the carriage behind. But Luodi knew that Argus might have seen the battle just now. As for why not ask? This is probably related to the conversation between Argus and Fina. An hour later. The sun gradually set, and it was already dusk. The fighting at the North Gate quietly stopped, and the battle came to an end. The civilians who were originally preparing to take refuge out of the city had to return to the Royal City due to the fierce fighting, and the various forces that were preparing to enter the city have also entered the Royal City. The entire dizzy St. Valen became increasingly chaotic. Let's go, Granny Agus! Then, 3 carriages drove up the street, passed through the corpses, walked out of the North Gate, and headed towards the town of Arata not far away. Brother Luodi, where have you been? I've been looking for you for a long time and haven't found you. As soon as he entered the old orphanage, he was met by Aiko, who jumped directly into Luodi's arms. It's nothing. I went to the Royal City with Granny Agus. Luodi scratched his head and told lies. However, the simple Aiko believed it. Okay, Brother Luodi, come with me and give you something. Enter the side room. Aiko picked up the gift box placed on the bedside. Hey, this is for you, you must wear it. Luodi took the gift box, but before he could say anything, Aiko pushed him out. This little girl is so mysterious. Opening the gift box, there was a beautifully crafted necklace inside. This made Luodi dumbfounded, but in the end he put it on. Inside the room, Aiko leaned against the door, holding another necklace in her hand, her face slightly red. Royal Palace. The guards were running around, seemingly searching for something. Your Majesty, this way! In a hidden corner, left guard Ting Song looked around and suddenly ran towards an unguarded path with the man in black robe beside him. Hey, Ting Song, if my death can put an end to this war, why not let me die? The man in black robe is none other than the king of Sitkaya Kingdom, Vladimir Shizuru. He knew everything that happened during the day. The left minister Rihaka planned to steal the country. His daughter was ready to rebel. By then war will be inevitable, and the people's peaceful life will be shattered. None of this was what he wanted to see. Your Majesty, haven't you seen Rihaku's true face yet? If we don't attack him at this time, if he succeeds in stealing the country, the entire country will be in dire straits. To be honest, sometimes Ting Song really hopes that His Majesty Shizuru can be more cold-blooded. His temperament is too soft, even giving people a feeling of weakness. But Shizuru really loves his people like his own children. This made Ting Song, a subordinate, anxious. In general, Shizukuro is a wise king, but he is not suitable to be the leader of a country. Your Majesty, consider the situation of Your Highness the Princess. We must leave here quickly, and the situation tomorrow will definitely be very chaotic. If you cannot come forward, the truth may be distorted by Rihaku. Other side. Rihaku slammed the wine in his hand to the ground, and his abstract face became even more distorted. Not found? Not found again. That little girl Fina ran away, and this time even Shizukuro ran away? What use do I need from you losers? Obviously he is only one step away from the throne, but now everything is not going as he wants. How does this make him sane? At this time, 2 guards came in escorting a man with disheveled hair and blood all over his body. Your Majesty, the right guard Banka has been captured. The word Your Majesty seemed to irritate the person being escorted. He suddenly raised his head and spat out a mouthful of blood. Bah, Rihaku, you have to die a good death. You want to be the king of Sitkia Kingdom, but you are worthy of it? Banka made a final struggle. His body swayed from side to side. Although he was injured, he was still able to break away. He raised his hands wrapped in chains and rushed towards Rihaku. Rihaku was also extremely angry, and waved his hand to the man in black beside him. Get rid of him! The man in black didn't speak, but disappeared the next moment. In the middle of his breath, Banka appeared in front of him again, and then he stretched out his right hand and poked forward several times quickly with his index finger. Chi-chi. Banka's eyes suddenly widened and became bloodshot, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Finally he fell to the ground, lifeless. If Luo Di were here, he would definitely find that the man in black is using the shaver and finger gun in Marine 6 styles. Seeing that Banka was solved, Rihaku breathed a sigh of relief, but his face was extremely ugly. After a long time, he took out the phone bug. Bulu bulu. The next day, the sun rose as usual, but the kingdom of Sitkia was shrouded in haze. Hundreds of ships gathered outside the only port town. Oh, let's go! The third in command of the betrayer, Simonton, who had just finished gambling, stretched out, played with the dice in his hand, and walked unhurriedly towards the south gate connected to the port town. Behind him was a dense crowd of mafia men in black suits. They stepped off one big ship after another, and there were thousands of them. But no one knew that in the farther sea, nearly 50 ships were quietly approaching here. The big flag hanging was suddenly the flag of the Kionian royal family. There seems to be another bigger conspiracy approaching. Let's talk about the royal city. Many civilians gathered outside the palace. In fact, many people don't believe what Princess Fina said about Rihaku stealing the country, mainly because Rihaku's disguise is so good. But things must come to an end, and the common people urgently need to ask King Shizuru to confirm this matter. But how did they know that Shizuku had escaped last night, and now it was Rihaku who lived in the palace? In the main hall. At this time, Rihaku was sitting on the throne, with a young woman half-dressed in his arms. Folk, you take people to send away those untouchables outside. If they really don't want to leave, you just get rid of them. The plans have been disrupted, and Rihaku does not intend to continue acting. Over the years, the power he has accumulated has become very powerful. There are nearly 20,000 elite soldiers secretly trained. In addition, he also used money to win over pirates, and there were many pirate groups associated with him, and there were no fewer than 10 pirate groups with bounties worth tens of millions. This power is enough for him to suppress anyone who disobeys him. Originally he wanted to take over the country properly, but since everyone wants to resist him, don't blame him for being rude. Yes. The man in black nodded, turned around and walked towards the outside of the palace. In the town of Arata outside the North Gate, Luo Di looked at the tens of thousands of crusaders and couldn't help but sigh. In just one night, 10,000 crusaders gathered. It's not easy! Even though they don't have sophisticated equipment, some of them only have hoes or shovels in their hands. Luo Di was also impressed. These people are not from the royal city, but from the 3 small towns of Arata, Drada and Grada. Cohen was able to gather them here in one night, and his coordination ability and charisma are immeasurable. In response to Luo Di's exclamation, Princess Fina raised the corners of her mouth, unable to conceal her pride in her words. Grandpa Cohen is so awesome! On the side, Aiko curled her lips. Humph, although I don't want to admit it, Grandpa Keen is indeed very powerful. However, in the end, we still have to rely on Brother Luo Di. Brother Luo Di is the most powerful in the world. Princess Fina then started arguing with her. Cohen was wearing silver armor, and the first ray of sunlight shone on his old but resolute face, adding a different kind of charm. Augustus told me, you are a fruit power user, right? Little brother Luo Di? Luo Di was slightly startled. Suddenly he remembered that the old woman named Agus had indeed been observing him yesterday, and also witnessed that battle where he barely used his devil fruit powers. He nodded. Well, I am indeed a devil fruit user. Cohen turned his head and looked at him with a somewhat complicated look. I have heard about the power of ability users before, but now that I have actually seen it, it is indeed a bit unexpected. Now he was basically certain that Nitfa, who was chasing him, and Princess Fina was killed by the 10-year-old boy in front of him. However, thinking about it now, that black slash might not have been unleashed by the powerful swordsman, but the ability possessed by the young man in front of him. With such powerful support, this crusade seems promising. But at the same time, Cohen still had a trace of worry in his heart. This worry was well captured by Cohen, so he made it clear directly. Captain Cohen, let me make it clear first that I don't have any thoughts about your country. All I care about are those 2 knives and the subsequent benefits. After the words fell, Cohen knew that he had been seen through, and a bitter smile appeared on his face. Sorry, I was overthinking it. The things I promised you before will not be less. Please rest assured. Strong strength can often intimidate others, and Cohen's words unknowingly revealed a little respect. After adjusting his mentality, he immediately began to rectify the somewhat scattered penitors, and made a plan. There are retired veterans in the crusade, who have been with Cohen for many years, and these veterans have their own unique insights into deployment and leading troops. As a result, the crusade army of more than 10,000 people was divided into 6 groups. In Cohen's plan, 2 teams attacked the North Gate, 2 teams attacked the West Gate, and 1 set up an ambush outside. The last one went to contact the civilians in the capital city of Duzi St. Valen and let as many people as possible attack Rihaku. This way you have a greater chance of winning. Once the plan is finalized, the battle begins immediately. As a princess, Fina also put on armor, and this time, she will also participate in the battle. On the road, Fina felt a little uneasy. Grandpa Cohen, how do you think my father is doing now? Don't worry, Your Majesty will be fine. Fina clasped her hands and murmured to herself. Yes, it will be fine. Rihaku is not stupid. Although I am very confident in the power behind me, some basic planning is still necessary. First, he sent heavy troops to guard the 4 city gates to prevent anyone from sneaking out. Knowing that Shizukuro was probably still in the city, he had to pull him out and execute him in public to scare the civilians. Now that the plan has been disrupted, he can't care so much anymore. At the same time, it can also ensure that when Fina and Cohen attack, he will receive the news as soon as possible. Secondly, he occupied the palace and imprisoned the guards left by Cohen. Now the palace is basically his people, and he has also arrested some old stubborns. Finally, the betrayer and the pirate group he bribed are also ready and lurking in the royal city. They can arrive immediately with just an order. I, Rihaku, the king of Satkaya, am determined. Ha ha ha! After drinking glasses of fine wine, Rihaku fell into endless reverie. He didn't notice that in the dark corner, There was a pair of eyes watching him silently. And outside the palace, folk dressed in black waved his hand to the soldiers. "Let's do it!" Immediately, the soldiers swarmed forward, and the civilians who came to find out the answer were instantly shocked. "What are you doing?" "Your Majesty, where are your Majesty's people?" "Ah, damn it, I'll fight you!" Marine 101 branch. Colonel Blake, who rarely smoked several cigarettes for the first time this time. "What did they say?" Major Marine, holding the phone bug in his hand, shook his head. "Only 105 of the 10 branches notified intend to send troops, and the other branches have used various reasons to shirk." Blake put out his cigarette and sighed. "The Marine headquarters turned a blind eye to this theft of the country, and only asked us to provide assistance after the war. It's normal that they don't want to come. But is this really just?" Just like a few years ago, Blake made the same sigh. "You know, there are pirates involved in this." Because of Rihaku's arrangements, pirates poured in large numbers, but it was civilians who suffered. "No, kid, give me the kid back! Mom, save me!" The pirate kicked a middle-aged woman away, and in his hand was a little girl who was only 7 or 8 years old. Tragedies also occurred in every corner of this royal city. Bang! "Damn Rihaku, you let the pirates do whatever they want!" Shizukuro, who is in his 40s, looks very haggard because he didn't sleep all night. The screams and curses that came from outside from time to time aroused his anger and hatred. On the side, left guard Ting Song kept persuading. "Your Majesty, calm down, we have to wait for Her Royal Highness and Captain Cohen now. If they are exposed, everything will be over." He basically said this all night. Time keeps moving. On the path outside the North Gate, a burst of chaotic footsteps sounded. In front of a team of nearly 4,000 people, the leaders were none other than Luo Di and Aiko. In addition, there are 2 veterans who have been fighting for many years following them. Seeing this battle, one of the 2 commanders stationed outside the North Gate took out a phone bug, and the other directly ordered the soldiers to fire. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, fire was everywhere, and bullets were coming towards him. "Ghost scythe shocking slash!" Luo Di gently grasped the Shinigami's scythe with his right hand. A huge black slash was thrown out between the swing and the retraction. Bang, bang, bang. But he saw those rapidly approaching bullets falling to the ground as soon as they touched the huge slash. However, everything was not over yet. The black slash did not stop there, but continued to move forward. It did not completely dissipate until it had harvested the lives of more than a dozen soldiers. "With this speed of physical recovery, it seems that as long as my body can hold on, I can keep fighting." Luo Di rotated the Shinigami scythe in his hand, and the stamina he had just lost was completely restored by the Shinigami scythe's feedback. However, the power of this move can only be achieved so far. When Ghost Scythe Shock Slash is released, it has constant energy. This energy will slowly disappear when it causes damage or flies. This is why it suddenly dissipates. Of course, its power will become stronger as Luo Di becomes stronger. All I can say is that there is a long way to go. Luo Di would know if there was one as soon as he made a move. The Crusade troops in the rear who were ready to be shot were shocked by the strength they showed, and bursts of excited cheers followed. Hope is expanding. The 2 veterans were also very excited, but they recovered quickly. Immediately ordered the attack. At this time, the morale of the crusade was at its highest, but the enemy was obviously frightened, and some even dropped their guns to the ground. It is obviously the most appropriate time to launch an attack at this time. "Brother Luo Di, what should we do next?" Aiko pulled Luo Di's arm. This was her first time experiencing such a large-scale war, and she was a little overwhelmed. Luo Di had a headache. Originally, he wanted to deal with more enemies. "But forget it, let's go, let's join the fight too." When the enemy officers saw the punitive troops rushing over, they immediately roared angrily. "Why are you standing there? Their equipment is incomparable to ours. Whatever you are afraid of, just shoot them." This voice instantly woke up the somewhat sluggish soldier. Yes, what are they afraid of if they have guns? Immediately, he raised the gun in his hand and started to fight back. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of gunfire began to spread, and the crusaders running at the front fell to the ground one after another. However, because of the large number of people, their attack was also effective. However, they saw that a stronger crusade force had arrived at the enemy's line. After a back-and-forth confrontation, they actually took the gun from the enemy's hand. I don't know whether it was because they didn't know how to use it or something, but those people didn't fire. Instead, they picked it up and hit the enemy on the head like a sledgehammer. It's funny to say that he was knocked unconscious to the ground at that moment. At this time, Luo Di and Aiko also rushed over. One line of sky! Luo Di's fingers quickly ejected, and air currents like shock waves passed through each soldier, and more than a dozen soldiers were killed in an instant. But their bodies did not fall to the ground, but flew backwards, knocking down more than a dozen soldiers in a straight line. The situation became one-sided. Damn it, damn kid! Officers observing from behind saw an opportunity. Fired a cold shot. Clang. However, the idea was beautiful, but the reality was cruel. The bullet was blocked by a long knife that suddenly appeared. If you dare to attack Brother Luo Di, you are seeking death! Aiko was really irritated this time. She ran quickly and killed a soldier with one knife. Then she took out the knife from his waist and flicked it again. The long knife passed through the crowd, like an arrow that had been preparing for a long time, and finally pierced the neck of the officer who fired the weapon, causing blood to splatter. Just one strike killed him instantly. Good! Aiko's actions naturally cannot escape Luo Di's eyes. It looks like it has to be over soon, but there are a group of more powerful guys waiting behind us, so we can't keep them waiting any longer. Then, Luo Di waved the Shinigami scythe and drew a circle around him. Dark Realm Shini! The pure black energy field quickly radiated outward from the center, and did not stop until it spread nearly 100 meters. Cut! As the last word fell, Luo Di slowly closed his eyes. Holding the handle of the Shinigami's sickle with both hands, he slashed forward. Almost at the same time, the semicircular dark realm suddenly collapsed and dissipated. When the sun sets again. Bang, bang, bang. One by one, soldiers began to fall to the ground. If you get closer, you will find a shallow wound on their neck. Call! Luo Di leaned on the Shinigami's scythe, breathing heavily. In fact, the move just now did not consume much physical energy. Mainly because Aiko and part of the crusade are also in the Dark Realm. In order to achieve accurate killing of enemies, his sense of sight must be used to the extreme, coupled with some subtle operations. This is why he is so tired. But soon, the feedback from Shinigami's scythe took effect. Apart from being a little mentally exhausted, his physical condition was not bad, and he even became stronger because of it. What the hell is that? The officer holding the phone bug almost lost his balance. God, is he dazzled? A moment. In just a moment, his men fell to the ground. Why is this different from what he thought? Soldiers armed with pistols and machetes, well-trained and physically strong. Unable to defeat a group of civilians holding scraps of metal? It's crazy. The world is crazy. Run, he doesn't want to stay here anymore. He immediately threw the phone bug in his hand on the ground, turned around, and squeezed away a soldier who was stunned on the spot, leaving only a figure running away. At this time, a soldier swallowed his saliva and asked blankly, What should we do next? The commander has run away, what else can we do? Run! Get out of the way, don't block the road, I don't want to die yet. The less than 100 soldiers left were obviously frightened. They didn't care about anything and ran towards the city gate one by one. The expeditionary army was also a little confused. They only saw a black thing suddenly appear on the battlefield, disappear in the blink of an eye, and the war was over. It's over? It's over! So fast? It's so fast. What just happened? Didn't see clearly. What should we do next? Have no idea. The two veterans looked at each other and saw shock in each other's eyes. The next moment, the two men walked forward at the same time and picked up guns and knives from the fallen soldiers. Everyone come here. Those who can use a gun will each get a gun. Those who can't use a knife. That's all the equipment. While the two soldiers were distributing equipment, Luo Di led Aiko towards the north gate. There are stronger people stationed inside. It seems to be pirates and the mafia. Under the circumstances, everything around him could not escape Luo Di's perception. However, when he was about to enter the door, he frowned and stretched out his right hand to stop Aiko. Etc. Aiko looked at him strangely, but stopped. What's wrong? What she responded to was a bullet shot from nowhere. And that bullet hit just in front of Luo Di's feet. If he took another step, the consequences would be disastrous. It turned out to be a sea tower stone bullet. Seeing the bullet, Luo Di frowned slightly, and then he raised his head. There's someone up there. The man seemed to notice that Luo Di had discovered him, and stood up straight from a squatting position. Oh my, you are indeed a young man, your perception is really amazing. As soon as he finished speaking, the figure jumped down from above and landed steadily in front of Luo Di and Aiko. This is a middle-aged man wearing a black suit with a thin face. He has thick lips, a pair of sunglasses on his nose, a sloppy beard, and what's even more surprising is that he is wearing a checkered hat. How about we play a game? If you win, I'll let you go, and I won't care about what happens next. If you lose, just stay here and gamble with me, how about that? As he spoke, he turned around in a circle. The gun originally held in his hand disappeared and was replaced by a small dice. Did you just fire the shot? Aiko's pretty face turned red. She was obviously angry, and she asked directly. A gun? What gun? The middle-aged man scratched his head, somewhat confused. Humph, I saw everything just now, you must have hidden it. Seeing him pretending to be stupid, Aiko became even more angry, pulled out the knife from his waist and slashed at him. Facing her fierce attack, the middle-aged man just turned his body slightly and dodged. Oh, girls, don't be so angry, you will get acne on your face. As he spoke, he stretched out his left hand and patted the blade of the sword gently, but, strangely, there was no movement. Oops, that's not right. What's wrong? You should fly out with a bang and then shout ah. The middle-aged man tilted his head and frowned, as if he was not satisfied with the result. Suddenly, he withdrew his hand again, raised his feet and took 2 steps back, and the person he was looking at turned into Luo Di. You did it right? He was no longer as casual as before, and this time he spoke clearly with some seriousness. In response, Luo Di shrugged and did not answer. He first signaled Aiko to take back the knife, and then pointed to the middle-aged man's right hand. Don't you want to play a game? You'd better hurry up, I'm in a hurry. The middle-aged man yelled ah, and stretched out his right hand as if belatedly, holding the dice in his hand. Ah yes, how about we play guess the size? Luo Di raised his eyebrows. Okay, I'll set the rules. Okay. Let's do this, I count 3, you throw the dice into the air, and then we say big or small at the same time, and the one who guesses correctly is the winner. Okay, let's get started. 1, 2. When the dice was rolled out, Luo Di guessed the small number, but the middle-aged man guessed the big number. With a bang, the dice fell to the ground, showing 2. Okay, you win, I won't interfere in the next thing. The middle-aged man picked up the dice, wiped it, and put it carefully into his pocket. Luo Di looked at him carefully and then nodded. When he was about to leave with Aiko, the middle-aged man spoke again. Oh, by the way, my name is Smanton, and I am the third in command of the betrayers. But I may have to wash my hands of him in a golden basin soon. Luo Di paused slightly and said his name. At this time, Smanton came over, and Luo Di knew that he meant no harm and did not stop him. After a short while, there was a brief conversation between the two. Even Aiko didn't know the specific content of the conversation. However, Aiko would not go out of his way to investigate these private matters. She believed in Luo Di unconditionally, and that was enough. However, there are some things she can't stand. The moment she stepped into the north gate, she finally couldn't help but ask. Brother Luo-di, why did you stop me just now? That person has obviously taken action. That shot almost hit Luo-di. How can Aiko tolerate this? Luo-di reached out and rubbed Aiko's little head. An unknown emotion flashed across his eyes. That person is very dangerous. I'm afraid you will get hurt. And, if he read it correctly, at that moment, the man named Smanton used his armed domineering force. Even the simplest armor color hardening. However, you must know that this is West Blue, not the new world where everyone is armed with sex. But having said that, if Luo-di and Smanton were to fight, Luo-di may not lose. However, if you want to win, you will also have to pay some price. Therefore, Luo-di had no idea of fighting Smanton. What's more, they might have other intersections in the future. The North Gate has 2 lines of defense. The first line consists of more than 600 soldiers, who are fully equipped, holding swords and guns, and wearing heavy armor. Facing civilians holding simple weapons, it is enough to fight 1 against 10. However, because Luo-di single-handedly eliminated nearly 400 soldiers, the first line of defense was quickly broken. Of the more than 4,000 crusade troops, only a few hundred were injured and dozens died. The second lane is composed of 2 pirate groups with a reward worth tens of millions and 200 mafiosi. In addition, there are strong men sent by Rihaku to guard it. The person sent from the North Gate was Smanton, the third in command of the betrayer. But this information was revealed to Luo-di by Smanton. Bang bang bang. As soon as Luo-di and Aiko walked through the main entrance, hundreds of bullets hit their faces. The firepower is very concentrated, and any ordinary person will be beaten into a sieve. Luo-di twisted his body and held Aiko in his arms, and immediately entered the Shinigami transformation in the next moment. The bullets landed on Shinigami's robe as if they were touching hard diamonds. Instead of penetrating them, they were bounced away and fell to the ground. Cole, I leave the rest to you. Can you do it? Can. Okay, let's try that one. Under the black robe, as the sound of Luo-di fell, some strange changes occurred in Aiko. Her long golden hair turned into pure black, her eyes were dyed a dark red, her hands were wrapped in a strange power, covered with a layer of dark lines, and she was also covered with a layer of black robes. However, compared to Luo-di, the black robe on her body was obviously much thinner. If I had to use 2 words to describe it, it would be monstrous. In fact, this is another use of Luo-di's devil fruit power that remains in his soul. Taking out a small part of it, and giving it to someone who has never eaten a devil fruit can cause that person to enter Shinigami transformation in a short period of time. The length of time that Shinigami transformation can be maintained depends on the physical strength of the recipient. When the physical strength is exhausted, that part of the demonic power will return to Luo-di's body. Entering the low-end version of Shinigami, Aiko felt the full power in her body, pulled out the knife from her waist, and then, the power of Shinigami wrapped around her. At this moment, she could cut through steel. Luo-di asked, "Can 10 minutes work?" Aiko nodded, her words full of confidence. "Can." Then, she tapped her toes on the ground, her body seemed to be weightless, and she walked several meters away in an instant. Aiko's own strength is comparable to that of pirates who have a bounty of 10 to 20 million, but at this time, her strength has increased several times, and it is easy to deal with those little minions. However, the Shinigami state has its limits. I tested it some time ago, and it took about 30 minutes. On the street, Aiko is dancing. Like an elusive spiritual snake, wandering among pirates and mafia. Everywhere he passed, people fell to the ground. The screams never stopped for a moment. Where exactly? The sniper hiding on the roof next to the street had no way of striking, and there was only a fast-moving black shadow in his sight. Totally missed. He could only watch as each of his companions fell to the ground. Someone also hid in the corner, and took out a phone bug and reported all this to Rihaku, who was enjoying himself in the palace. "What? The North Gate is lost! Where is Smanton? Let him talk to me." "Missed? Not found? I asked him to guard the North Gate, but he disappeared?" Trash, all trash! Snap! Rihaka's face turned red, and because of his anger, he kicked the maid who was massaging him aside violently, and the wine glass he was holding in his left hand was thrown to the ground. The successive misfortunes made his temples throb. Why is it so difficult to win the throne? Was his plan of the past 10 years in vain? No, we can't sit still and wait for death. The North Gate was breached so quickly. It seems that all their forces should be concentrated at the North Gate. Then he stood up and walked out quickly. Fogg was guarding outside the palace gate. Folk, lead all the troops towards the North Gate. Inform the soldiers, pirates, and mafias guarding the other 3 gates to rush to the North Gate. Rihaka planned to take down the entire expeditionary army in one fell swoop. Total war begins. As soon as Rihaka stepped forward, the person who had been hiding in the darkness came out. If Rihaka was still here, he would definitely recognize that this person was the leader of the betrayers, Feazal. It turns out he had been eavesdropping the whole time. Let's fight. The more intense the fight, the better. In the end, the entire kingdom of Scythia will be brought under the name of His Majesty Lipland. It is not difficult to tell from his words that the person behind the mafia organization, Betrayer, is actually the kingdom of Keonia. Rihaka's move to raise troops and go out instantly shocked the whole country. Reporters frantically took photos and wrote down pieces of explosive news. The civilians who were watching had different guesses about Rihaka's actions. But most people are deeply skeptical about this. Someone in the crowd asked, "Minister Lihaku, is what Princess Fina said yesterday true? Are you really planning to steal the country? Where has your Majesty been?" Immediately afterwards, people one after another raised questions. "Why are you bringing so many soldiers? The 4 city gates are heavily guarded and we are not allowed to go out. Is this your order?" Others expressed anger. "There are so many pirates in the city, do you just ignore them?" There were even women with wounds all over their bodies trying to break through the soldiers' interception. "Lord Rihaku, my child was snatched away by pirates, can you help me?" What she responded to was a cold bullet. Showdown. Rihaku stopped pretending. "If you keep arguing, she will be your fate. If you don't want to die, get out." Immediately, the fear of death caused the onlookers to flee in all directions. They were sure that Rihaku was really planning to steal the country, and King Shizuru might have encountered something unexpected. The 4 gates out of the city are blocked. What will be waiting for them? No one knows. Blake watched silently for a long time before he dropped the cigarette, but he had finished smoking in his mouth on the ground. "Wait until everything is over before helping, hee hee. The outcome must be written by the winner after all. Who will win the victory or defeat the enemy? Who knows?" Even though he was used to seeing filth and darkness, Blake still couldn't hide his sadness. World Economic News reporter Oyamo sent the image he just recorded to Morgans, and the excitement in his heart could no longer be suppressed. "Follow me, there must be bigger news." Oyamo feels lucky to have come to this country. The battle at the North Gate is over. It took Ikoto 5 minutes to completely eliminate all the pirates and mafia. At this time, nearly half of her physical strength was consumed. The power of Shinigami left her body and her body returned to its original state. However, despite being tired, her physical strength had increased slightly. That's the effect of the Shinigami robe. Killing enemies can also provide rewards to a certain extent. Even if the effect is less than 1% of Shinigami's scythe, it is still very rare. And this is why Aiko is so strong at only 9 years old. In just 10 minutes, the battle inside was over. The equipment outside has also been allocated. When the 2 veterans came in with the crusade, they saw this scene in front of them. All enemies have been defeated? So, what are they doing here? Luodi picked up 2 guns and threw them to the 2 veterans. "Don't be stunned. Distribute these weapons quickly. The real battle has just begun. The number of troops coming later may be more than 20 times that here. And they can be here in an hour at most." Luodi's knowledge can cover half of the country, and he also has a general understanding of Rihaku's actions. "By the way, it's best to inform your princess and Mr. Cohen to summon the crusade as soon as possible. What awaits you will be a hard battle. The things I promised Princess Fina and Mr. Cohen are basically completed. So, can you give me the key and map? In fact, when they separated from Cohen and Princess Fina, they agreed to give Luo Di the key to the treasury and the location of the treasury. However, there was one condition, which was to allow Luo Di to safely enter the royal city with more than 4,000 crusaders. Afterwards, a veteran named Ive handed over the key and the map to him. I have to say that Princess Fina is really good at calculating. The palace was occupied by Rihaku, and the treasury key was basically a blank check. However, they didn't know that there were basically no troops guarding the palace at this time, and they were all brought out by Rihaku. This actually fulfilled Luo Di's wish. Veteran Ivy obviously knew about this. He first took out the phone bug and contacted Princess Fina. After exchanging information, a golden key and a piece of folded paper were handed to Luo Di. This is the key and the map. Then, see you again when we are destined. Luo Di took it, and then directly entered the semi-Shinigami transformation. Shinigami robes were added to his body, and he flew towards the sky with Aiko. Aiko hugged Luo Di's waist tightly, as if she was a little scared, and buried her whole face in his arms. Brother Luo Di, what are we going to do next? Of course I'm going to get the treasure. It's time for you to change to a better knife. The corners of Luo Di's mouth rose slightly. Their destination is the palace. After nearly an hour, Cohen and Fina finally arrived at the West Gate with more than 6,000 crusaders. It's incredible. Ivy has successfully entered the North Gate, and even the guards there have been eliminated. Fina hung up the phone, her face full of surprise. As she said that, she looked at Cohen, who was observing on one side. Grandpa Cohen, what's going on with Simon? But Cohen frowned, his face full of confusion and solemnity. No, the situation at the West Gate is completely different from that at the North Gate. There are no heavy guards outside. Could it be that they are ambushing inside? That's not right. It doesn't look like there are people here. Wait, could it be that, because the North Gate was broken, they all rushed to the North Gate? Not good. Cohen's face immediately turned ugly. We must contact Ivy and the others immediately. And we must also increase the number of the crusade as soon as possible. Immediately, he told Princess Fina his thoughts. Sitkia Palace. Luo Di and Aiko arrived successfully. Flying all the way here, I basically didn't see any guards. But Luo Di noticed a powerful aura. And the source of that aura seems to be within the palace. Is there anyone else here? Luo Di frowned slightly, but he was not afraid at all. Brother Luo Di, what's wrong? It's okay, let's go there and have a look first. Then the two walked side by side and entered the palace. The palace is very grand and magnificent, but there is a person sitting on the throne at the top. The man was wearing a black suit, tall, with short light purple hair. There was an obvious scar on the right side of his face. The scar was very long and penetrated half of his face. His eyes were like falcons, extremely sharp. At this time, he had a cigar in his mouth, crossed his legs, supported his chin with his left hand, and looked quietly at Luo Di and Aiko, who had just come in. What are you doing? His voice was very low, but it had an inexplicable pressure. Luo Di narrowed his eyes. The icon on your clothes, if I guess correctly, should be the unique symbol of the betrayer. Why are you asking us? Why don't you tell us first? What are you doing here? Luo Di had seen the betrayers, and naturally remembered their clothing. He also did not forget the image of Yuchi holding a pistol against his back. And that person is indeed a betrayer, and he has a fairly high profile. This person is none other than the leader of the betrayers, Faisal. Faisal took a deep breath from his cigar and blew out a wisp of white smoke from the corner of his mouth, his momentum becoming more and more threatening. Kid, you talk too much. Although I don't know how you dare to come to a place like this, but one thing can be confirmed, you, never want to leave here again. As soon as he finished speaking, he stepped forward fiercely, and his body was like an arrow from the string, carrying a strong wind and attacking Luo Di. Luo Di naturally wouldn't just stand there stupidly. He touched the ground with his left foot, and quickly kicked out with his right foot mixed with the power of Shinigami. Bang! Fiesel obviously didn't expect Luo Di's attack to be so fierce. He immediately felt something was wrong as soon as his arm came into contact, and then he tried to relieve his strength on one side of his body. But it was too late. Luo Di took advantage of him again, spinning his body in the air and kicking down hard with his left foot. Snap! Fiesel couldn't bear it, and fell directly to the ground. Kid, I really underestimated you. At this time, Fiesel also realized that the kid in front of him was no longer simple. Then he clapped his right hand and stood up using his strength. But there was a deep palm print left on the ground, which showed that his strength was not weak. You are not an ordinary person if you can eat my kick without getting hurt. Luo Di moved his legs and feet. Not to mention, the man in front of him was really hard. It looks like there's going to be a tough battle. However, Fiesel did not follow the routine and took a step back and took a puff of his cigar. Boy, you are so young and have such strength. Do you want to hang out with me? Luo Di raised his eyebrows. I am not a person who wants to be submissive to others. Fiesel sneered, seeming to be disdainful. I used to be just like you, unwilling to submit to others. As a result, reality slapped me hard. Only after I have been on the sea did I realize how big the world is and how many other people have the means to deal with me. Yes, he was once young and frivolous. But reality will always find opportunities to smooth out his edges. Luo Di understands him because he has also lost to reality. However, since God has given him a second chance, he will hold it firmly, and no longer be content with being ordinary. In this case, there is nothing more to say. Come on, let me bury you today! Next, I will use my full strength. Immediately, he went straight into full Shinigami transformation. This was the first time since he left the village that he fully demonstrated his powers. The power of Shinigami surrounded him, the air seemed to solidify, and even the ground began to slowly crack. Here you go and wait outside. Next, there will be a battle between me and him. Aiko nodded. Okay, Brother Luo Di, be careful, I'll go out first. With that said, he walked out. Although she was very confident in Luo Di, it was the first time for her to see him in this form, which showed that he was also very powerful. Oh, it's not simple. It seems that you are a fruit power user. Is this your confidence? Fiesel saw the clue at a glance. Because. However, you are not the only one with fruit abilities, and I also ate the devil fruit. It is the animal type, the canine fruit, and the jackal form. As the fruit's ability was activated, Fiesel's body twisted and his bones crackled. Eventually it turned into a 3-meter-tall half-humanoid monster. And this is the human-animal form. Did you know that the animal devil fruit can give the eater the wild power of an animal, and my physical fitness can also be greatly enhanced? You are just an 11 or 12-year-old brat, how can you fight me? As he said that, he kicked his leg hard with a whip. The Shinigami's scythe in Luo Di's hand blocked it with one swipe. Immediately afterwards, the power of Shinigami was activated, and an invisible aura burst out. Fiesel's expression changed slightly, he dodged with a flip in the air, and then smacked down hard with his right hand. His hands turned into sharp claws, and when this claw fell, the consequences could be imagined. And with the perception of seeing and hearing, Fiesel's movements were clearly captured by Luo Di, and the Shinigami's sickle spun around and was easily resolved. Then the two exchanged dozens of moves. Luo Di faced them all calmly, but Fiesel seemed to be struggling. It was obvious that he had chosen to attack in the blind corner several times, but Luo Di was always able to defuse it, which made him more and more frightened and confused at the same time. How can an 11 or 12-year-old boy be so good at physical skills these days? What's more, he also ate an animal-type devil fruit that is good at physical skills. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Compared to Fiesel's complicated thoughts, Luo Di didn't think that much. After a brief confrontation, he realized that the person in front of him was not as strong as he thought. Luo Di thought at first that he would be able to use armed domineering skills like Simonton, but now it seems that he obviously thought too much. After 2 more confrontations, Luo Di took 2 steps back. What's the relationship between Smanton and you? Feasel also stopped, slightly surprised. Do you know Simonton? Luo Di did not deny it. Feasel did not expect that the young man in front of him actually knew Smanton. Then, a fierce light flashed across his eyes. What is the relationship between him and me? I'm afraid you will die knowing it. After saying this, he crossed his claws, then tore at the air forcefully, and 2 invisible wind claws quickly attacked Luo Di. Ghost Side Shocking Slash! Luo Di was not afraid at all, and easily defeated it with a volley of Shinigami's sickle. But the slash didn't stop there. Feasel's pupils shrank, and seeing that he couldn't avoid it, he crossed his hands on his chest. Ahem. After all, he was able to defend himself, but he also suffered some internal injuries. Okay, now let me give you the final blow. Luo Di spun the Shinigami's sickle, approaching step by step. Feasel sneered. Haha, it seems that I have been underestimated by you, so how about you try this trick? Wind Blade Impact! As his claws continued to tear apart, wind blades shot towards Luo Di at extremely fast speeds. One of the cuts produced a small explosion on the ground, leaving a crater the size of a basketball. It's very strong, but it's a pity that I know how to smell it. Luo Di couldn't help but sigh. His body moved left and right, but surprisingly not even a wind blade hit him. Instant Flash Soul-Souling! Suddenly, he clenched the Shinigami's scythe with both hands and charged forward. As a black light flashed by, Feasel's pupils shrank and the attack in his hand slowly stopped. There was another bang sound, and he fell to the ground, no longer alive. This move is very powerful, but unfortunately, the conditions for its activation are a bit harsh. Lodi looked at Feasel's body and cancelled the Shinigami transformation. Flash Soul. The enemy needs to be highly tensed mentally and suffer a certain loss of physical strength. On this basis, Luo Di then uses the shaving blessed by the power of Shinigami to achieve the effect of almost teleporting over a very short distance, and then quickly slashed out the Shinigami's scythe at the same time. It not only pays attention to timing, but also requires the enemy to meet the conditions. Although it can be killed in one hit, it is indeed a bit harsh. But people who have eaten devil fruits are different. The power that the Shinigami's scythe feeds back this time is completely different from the past. Luo Di felt that his physical strength had improved significantly. If he were to fight Feasel again, he would win quickly even without Shinigami transformation. It's a pity that we still don't know his identity. Bulu bulu bulu. Just as Luo Di was about to leave, the unique voice of the phone bug rang. Then he squatted down and groped Feasel's body. After connecting, Luo Di did not speak immediately, but waited for the other party to speak. Of course, Luo Di knew that the phone bug would imitate human characteristics, and pointed the phone bug at Feasel's face. The other party was also very considerate, and spoke first. Hello, Feasel? What took you so long to answer? At this time, Luo Di noticed the appearance of the phone bug, with a mustache, eyes full of majesty, and a crown on his head. Could it be that the other party is a king? He couldn't help but guess. After the other party asked again, Luo Di lowered his voice and kept it as low as possible. Ahem, Your Majesty, I'm very sorry, I've been feeling a little unwell lately. In short, it got over in the end. At this time, the other party got to the point. Has the war begun? As soon as these words came out, Luo Di smelled a conspiracy. I vaguely remember that Koan once talked about a kingdom called Kionia, and their prince also had a marriage contract with Fina. Could it be that the person he was talking to was the king of the Kionian kingdom? So why does he care about this war? Luo Di suddenly became curious. Well, this time Rihaka personally leads the troops, and the battle has already begun. The phone bug burst out laughing, even a little crazy. Okay, if Rihaka wins, you can deal with him. If not, I will arrive tomorrow, and then I will end this battle. That's it. Luo Di understood instantly. This Rihaka turned out to be a big injustice, and he was still helping count money after he was sold. The person on the other end of the phone who was suspected to be the king of Kionia was already heading towards the kingdom of Sitkaya. Tomorrow, the civil war in the kingdom of Sitkia will probably end, but can they withstand another country's offensive after just experiencing the war? Everything is unknown. After a brief exchange, the other party hung up the phone. It's really one wave after another. Luo Di sighed deeply, feeling a little emotional about the unknown fate of this country. Brother Luo Di, is this really the treasure house map? Aiko looked left and right, maybe because she was young, or maybe because the map was too complicated, she still couldn't understand it. Go to heaven! Luo Di entered the semi-Shinigami transformation and flew to the sky above the palace with Aiko. Ah, so that's it! In midair, Aiko danced excitedly after understanding the map. Then the treasure house should be at that location. After comparing it again, Aiko pointed to a tall building behind the palace. Walk! Let's talk about the other side. Lihaku is approaching the north gate with nearly 20,000 well-equipped soldiers. At this time, the phone rang. Your Majesty, something bad has happened. Someone in the palace saw. Following a scream, the phone beeped and lost signal. Hey, what's going on over there? Tell me clearly, damn it! Rihaka covered his head, feeling a little headache. Forget it, Fiesel is still in the palace, he should be able to handle it. I don't know if God was against him, but the phone rang again. It was the officer who rushed from the west gate to the north gate. Hey, Your Majesty, something is going on here. The untouchables gathered at the north gate seem to have noticed our actions and set up an ambush in advance. They are also equipped with weapons, including guns. Please support us. In fact, all of this was seen by Cohen. At that time, he noticed that there was no one at the west gate and felt something was wrong. He immediately informed the veteran Ivy who had just breached the north gate and was distributing equipment. Although veteran Ive has retired for several years, he has actually been on the battlefield. There is still some overall perspective. Then he asked the expeditionary army to set up an ambush. Don't tell me, he really ambushed me. Damn it, they must be spies. When the war is over, I will liquidate you. Rihaka gritted his teeth. But he also knew he had to stay calm now. Fak, who was driving in front, said in his cold voice. Your Majesty, don't panic, I'll take care of everything. Rihaka was stunned for a moment, then suddenly laughed. That's right, I still have you. With you, they can't make any waves, haha. Having lost his position just now, but now realizing that he still has a big killer weapon, Rihaka calmed down obviously. Simon, the king of Sitkaya Kingdom, Shizukuro, appears. Also coming with him was Ting Song, the left guard. The moment she saw her father, Fina cried. Koan also wiped his eyes. He thought something bad had happened to His Majesty. After a short conversation, Shizuku explained what happened last night. And they were able to escape the palace safely thanks to the right guard Banka. It was him who took the initiative to lead away the pursuers in the palace, otherwise Shizukuro might not have been able to escape. If you say that, I'm afraid Banka has already been arrested. Koan was unable to express his sadness. Banka was his apprentice, and they had been together for more than 10 years. Their feelings could not be explained clearly in just 1 or 2 sentences. However, now is not the time to be sad, Your Majesty, it is time to fight back. Many people in the royal city are looking forward to your coming forward. As long as you stand up and say something, they will immediately pick up weapons and fight alongside us. A series of eager eyes looked at him. Shizuru thought about last night's tragedy again, the children's cries for help, the women's screams, and the pirates' shouts. At this moment, he woke up a little. He has always seemed too indecisive. During his lifetime, his father taught him to love his people and treat others with courtesy. But he forgot that his father once said that it is impossible to be the king of a country without iron-blooded means. Yes. Because of this, Shizukuro never thought of taking charge of the army, and the military power was basically controlled by ministers. Maybe, everything that happened today was more or less related to him being an unqualified king. However, Now that he has recognized himself, Shizukuro is not going to escape. At this moment, he finally had a hint of imperial domineering in his body. Keen, you first lead the troops to the north gate to support Ive. Banka, protect Fina. I will organize the people to start a counterattack. The country is in crisis and Rihaku is powerful, so Shizuku can only rely on the power of the people. And his appearance may change the situation. Facing this emperor who suddenly became somewhat unfamiliar, a flash of excitement flashed across Koan's eyes. Ting Song obeyed unconditionally. Fina opened her mouth, seeming to be dissatisfied with her father's arrangements for her, but in the end she just gave a small grace. After wandering around the complex terrain of the palace for a long time, Luo Di and Aiko finally came to a simply decorated room. According to what Princess Fina said, the mechanism seems to be on the back of a painting. There were more than a dozen paintings hanging on the wall. When Luo Di opened the fifth one, he felt a slight bulge. He pressed it lightly, and there was a click sound. Aiko's exclamation came from behind. Brother Luo Di, look here! Luo Di turned around and saw a secret passage in the center of the house. Then it should be inside. The corners of his mouth raised slightly. After all, the treasure house was right in front of him. Could he be in a bad mood? Then, the two of them walked in one after the other. Extending forward, there is a passage more than 10 meters long, but there are luminous pearls on the surrounding walls, so the passage will not appear dim. After turning a corner, Luo Di finally saw a dark door. Luo Di inserted the key, and with a click, the lock opened. The door was very thick, so he didn't push it open at first. It wasn't until he used 50% of his strength that he slowly pushed the door open. What comes into view is a U-counter with two Tachi swords resting on top. One scabbard is white, the other is green. Is this the blowing wind and flying snow? Pulling out one of them, the hand was heavy, with a hint of coolness. The blade was all white, and the blade was in the shape of a small T-shape. The other one is lighter in hand, giving people a sharp feeling, and the blade is also a small T-shaped blade. Luo Di nodded with satisfaction and threw it to Aiko. Cole, here you go! Both knives were very good, but Luo Di was not interested in them. In comparison, Shinigami's scythe is the most suitable for him. The Shinigami's scythe has the ability to grow. The more people it kills, the more amazing the evil energy on it will be, and its power will become stronger and stronger. What's more, it can also increase the user's strength. Aiko took the two knives and was a little happy. After all, this was the first gift Luo Di gave her. But, Brother Luo Di, there are two of them. Don't you want one? Luo Di shook his head. You know, I have better weapons. Aiko nodded and hung two knives on his waist. Although she is a one-sword type, she can use two swords. Finally, Luo Di searched the treasure house and packed a bag of gold before preparing to leave. Now that everyone is here, he won't just take two knives. Okay, it's time to go check out the battle and harvest some more. It would be great if there are still people with fruit abilities. Time flies. The sun gradually rose, but the dazzling sunlight could not dispel the haze and dizzy St. Valen. Lehaka led his troops to the north gate. The crusade led by Ivy is also ready. Without any shouting, the battle between the two sides was about to break out. Shot! After Ivy gave an order, the crusade troops hiding in the dark opened fire instantly. Fire! And Rihaka came straight to the point without talking about martial ethics. The cannon is used as a shotgun, and the shot is suppressed by firepower. Bang, bang, bang. Under the bombardment of more than a dozen cannons, there were waves of painful whines from the crusade. 30 or 40 crusaders were hit by artillery shells, and the violent explosions left them covered with wounds, and several even died on the spot. War is so cruel. In the next few minutes, hundreds more people died. Most of them were on the side of the conquering army. You untouchables dare to resist me? Rihaka laughed, but it was covered up by the huge sound of gunfire. Ivy looked at the one-sided situation on the field, and he, who had always been calm, became a little desperate. The gap is really too big. What made him even more sad and angry was the tragic death of those crusaders. Some of them were people he knew well. Okay, I believe in His Majesty the King. Alf turned around. The person who spoke was none other than his old partner, Chad. Well, hold on. Ive shook his head and forced himself to cheer up, raised the gun in his hand, and shot out a lead bullet, which instantly penetrated the throat of a soldier. My marksmanship is still the same as before. Chad raised his gun and shot another soldier. The two encouraged each other, persisted, and waited. The battle at the North Gate became increasingly intense. The number of troops in the expeditionary force was reduced to almost half. At this moment, the earth suddenly began to shake. Those are footsteps. Lots of footsteps. Fok turned his head first, and saw streams of dust in his eyes. People, lots of people. They attacked from the rear of the army in countless numbers. However, they basically have no equipment. Fogg saw that the leading men only had simple sticks in their hands. Damn untouchables, they all want to die, right? Come on, kill them! Rihaka also noticed the movement behind him. He turned around and saw a group of civilians, who seemed to unite to resist him. He was immediately irritated. Upon hearing the instructions, some of the soldiers in the rear fired, while others drew their swords and faced them. The scene became increasingly chaotic for a while. Damn it, where are Fina and Shizuku? Looking at the North Gate again, Rihaka became more and more irritated because he still hadn't seen the escaped Princess Fina and King Shizukuru. Without killing them completely, he would not be able to be king with peace of mind. Let's talk about the other side. With Shizukuro's appearance, the formation of the Crusade army went smoothly. Keen should have already fought with Rihaku. It's time for me to set off. During this period, he summoned nearly 10,000 people, and it was time to set off. There should be reinforcements in the future, and Princess Fina is also helping to form a crusade. Set off! Yes! After giving the order, tens of thousands of people shouted in unison, their voices revealing determination. Shizuru was right, Koen arrived. He led more than 6,000 expeditionary troops to fight against Rihaku's army. The armor on his body was stained with blood, and he kept waving the long knife in his hand. A soldier fell to the ground as the sword light passed by. In a matter of seconds he killed dozens of soldiers. However, he was also shot in the shoulder. After all, I am still old. What's more, he was hit with an axe by Nitfa before, and now his chest still hurts. Folk, who had been observing the situation behind the scenes, noticed Koen. However, because Koen's helmet completely blocked his face, Folk did not recognize him. However, Folk was ready to take action. He saw a threat in Koen. With the target in mind, Folk disappeared directly. In a few breaths, he was in front of Koen, his index finger thrust forward. Point the gun! The finger gun is one of the 6 marine styles. It is a technique that is said to have the power of a gun. All the power is concentrated in the index finger, and the fingertip has bullet-like attack power. Although Koen was old, years of fighting made him subconsciously raise his sword to resist. Clang! The finger hit the blade, and the huge force directly caused Koen to take 2 steps back. So strong! He noticed that the blade had an obvious dent. It was obviously caused by the finger just now. At this time, he also noticed the appearance of the visitor. It's Fok! Fork was Rihaku's bodyguard, and Koen knew this. But he didn't expect this guard to be so strong. Falk on the opposite side didn't stop there. Shave! With another dodger, he came behind Koen and kicked out his right foot at an extremely fast speed. The one he used turned out to be one of the 6 marine styles Erasure Ko. The power of the feet rolled up the air, like a sharp slash. When Koen saw Fokker disappear in front of him, he knew something was wrong. As soon as he heard the movement behind him, he was ready to turn around and fight back. But it was obviously too late. The slash released by Lan Jiao left a huge gash in his armor, and blood remained on the ground along the edge. Folk added 2 more kicks until Koen completely fell to the ground, then turned around and left. But when he returned, Rihaku frowned and asked, Folk, what did you do just now? Resolve the person who might be a threat to you. Don't leave easily next time without my permission. Yes. Then, another half an hour later. The battle is almost coming to an end. There were less than 1,000 soldiers left at the north gate. The Rihaku army caught in the middle only lost more than 1,000 people. The more than 6,000 crusade troops led by Koen in the rear have also been reduced by half, with only more than 3,000 soldiers left. One corpse after another tells the story of the brutality of this battle, and the blood is almost soaking this main road. Seeing that the battle was one-sided and probably would end soon, King Shizukuro arrived with reinforcements. The scene before him caused him great pain. However, he had to stop this vicious war, and he had to bring Rihaku, the hateful thief, to justice. Following the order, nearly 20,000 people followed him and joined the battle. Why nearly 20,000 people? The extra crusade army joined halfway. Many of them had seen Rihaku let soldiers kill civilians. If this kind of person succeeds in stealing the country and becomes king, it is already foreseeable what will happen to the entire country in the future. Noticing the commotion behind him, Fok naturally turned around immediately and observed silently. Your Majesty Rihaku, I saw Shizukuro, and he brought many people with him. Rihaku turned his head and saw Shizuru as expected. A flash of blood suddenly appeared on his face, and his voice was full of excitement. Go and capture him. As long as you control him, those untouchables will naturally not resist. Yes. Of course, Fok would not refuse, and directly used Shao, turning his body into an afterimage, and shuttled among the crowd. Soon he came to Shizukuro and without saying anything, he raised his hand and grabbed him. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared and stopped him. Oh, you actually know how to shave in the 6 marine styles. Are you a marine? The voice was full of teasing. The person who came was none other than Luo Di. As for Aiko, he hid at Luo Di's request, so he didn't come. Besides, there is also gold taken out from the treasure house, so it is impossible to bring it over. Who are you? Fok took a step back. He didn't realize how the young man in front of him came here. Moreover, this young man actually knew the moves he used. What's more, Marine's 6th form is Marine's secret. How could a boy know it? In short, all kinds of doubts surround my mind. But obviously, Luo Di would not answer him. Using the same shave, he came behind Fok in a blink of an eye, followed by an elbow strike. The person in front of me can just be used as my first whetstone after becoming stronger. Fok reacted quickly, moved his foot back to 2 meters away, and then raised his right foot. Lan Jiao! He kicked forward fiercely, and the air was swept up, like a sharp slash. Luo Di managed to avoid it by relying on his knowledge and color. However, the people behind him were in dire straits, as one kick directly took away their lives. And now Luo Di was determined. The person in front of me is probably a marine. But why would he help Rihaku steal the country? Marine has become so evil? It doesn't matter if he's marine or whatever, he's just my whetstone now. Luo Di shook his head slightly, his body turned into an afterimage, and he attacked Fok again. Just like that, both sides were going back and forth, punching each other hard, and the speed was too fast for the human eye to catch. Finally, Fok seized an opportunity and pointed his index finger at Luo Di's arm. Point the gun! However, how could Luo Di, who possesses knowledge and color, be attacked by him? I saw him withdraw his left arm quickly and kick out his right leg quickly. The huge force kicked Fok on the side of the waist, sending him flying several meters away. 2 unlucky guys who were fighting happened to be hit by him and pinned under him. Ahem, what a scary little devil! Fok spat out a mouthful of blood, his face gloomier than ever before. In the past 10 years, except for that damn Sakaski, you are the first person to hurt me. Sakaski? Akainu? Luo Di was a little surprised. He obviously didn't expect that the person in front of him actually knew Akainu. According to what he said, Akainu even beat him up? However, before Luo Di could think about it, Fok tore off the black clothes on his body. What came into view was a piece of skin that was slightly wrinkled due to excessive burns. There is still a dent on his chest that has not healed. However, your attack is still far behind that damn Sakaski. The information revealed in the words made Luo Di instantly understand that Akainu might have killed him when he hit him. However, for various reasons, he survived in the end. Could it be that the man in front of me is a marine trader? Could this man be a marine trader? This strange thought occupied Luo Di's mind. The person in front of me knows the shaving, Ayrshire kick and finger gun among the 6 marine moves, and he is quite a grandmaster. As for the other moves, it is not yet clear. But one thing is for sure. This person has received special training, so he can master 3 of the 6 moves so skillfully. And apart from Marine, the only other organization that can do this is the CP organization. Finally, Luo Di asked, "Are you a Marine trader?" Hearing this, Fok was obviously stunned for a moment, then suddenly covered his face and threw his head back and laughed. "Rebel General? Marine? Haha, yes, I used to be a Marine, but that lunatic Sakaski executed me for the reason of my escape. Fortunately, I was lucky enough to survive. Looking back now, the burn on my chest still hurts. Damn Sakaski, now he has become a Marine General, and I can only stay here in West Blue. Everything is because of him, everything is caused by him." As he said that, Fok's emotions were a little out of control. "Shave!" His body disappeared from the spot and appeared behind Luo Di the next moment. "Boy, you deserve to die too!" Luo Di was already prepared. The muscles in his right hand tensed up. He turned around and punched out, causing the air to roar slightly. Bang! "Damn it!" Fok, whose body was constantly falling back, straightened up. As his whole body exerted strength, he stepped on the ground with both feet and stopped in an instant. Cough, poof! A mouthful of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Luo Di clenched his fists. "You are strong, but only for West Blue." The next moment, Luo Di appeared in front of Fok like a ghost as soon as he started shaving. With the power of Shinigami, his speed is significantly faster. "Okay, I won't play with you anymore. I just tested my physical strength. Next, I will really deal with you." As soon as he finished speaking, the Shinigami's scythe appeared. "Ghost Scythe Shocking Slash!" Fok wanted to escape, but as soon as he took a step, he was overwhelmed by a huge slash. His body trembled, his eyes rolled, and he fell limply to the ground. Luo Di glanced at him, and then took back the Shinigami's scythe after the repayment was completed. This person has great potential, but it's a pity that he met a kind who pursues absolute justice before. Luo Di didn't know that his battle with Fok fell into the eyes of many people. But even if he knew, he wouldn't care. Somewhere on a street corner, Oyamo kept taking pictures, and finally pointed the camera at Luo Di. "Ho ho, this young man is incredible. Is he a fruit power user? What is that sickle?" All kinds of doubts gathered in the mind of this war reporter. But he knew that in the near future there might be a place for that young man in this sea. Whether as a pirate or a marine. However, that is not important, he must record all of this. On the other side, Rihaka naturally noticed this battle. He never expected that such a powerful Fok would lose. Although he could not see clearly during the battle, it did not prevent him from seeing the final result. There was no doubt that it was Verk who fell to the ground. What to do? What to do? This time he was completely panicked. Folk is his strongest trump card. If he dies, what should I do? Suddenly, he noticed a dozen forts surrounding him. By the way, all of you, aim your turret at that man and kill him. When several gunners heard this obviously panicked sound, they all looked in the direction Rihaka said. After they all adjusted the fort, the main gunner had some difficulties. Your Majesty, there are many of our soldiers there. Do you really want to do this? Rihaka yelled and cursed a little crazily, telling him to fire quickly. The main gunner no longer objected and made a gesture, and then a dozen gunners opened fire at the same time. Bang, bang, bang. Luo Di suddenly raised his head and frowned slightly. Noticed yourself? Immediately afterwards, he directly entered the full Shinigami transformation, holding the Shinigami scythe in one hand, and slashed hard. Suddenly, a black light flashed, and the huge slash engulfed all the cannonballs. Like the remote control of a time bomb, all the bombs detonated in midair, and none of the soldiers who were shooting below were spared. Monster! These two words appeared in the minds of more than a dozen gunners and Rihaku at the same time. First, this was the first time that Rihaku saw someone who was not afraid of shells and gunfire. Even Fok, who he thought was extremely powerful, couldn't possibly achieve this level. At this moment, Rihaku was already timid. How can he win with such a monster who is not afraid of cannonballs? Before, he could rely on military strength and firepower. But what happens if these fail? Will suddenly appear in front of you. Rihaku was startled because a Shinigami-like figure suddenly appeared in front of him. After taking a closer look, it was suddenly Luo Di. Did you ask them to open fire? The corners of Luo Di's mouth were slightly raised, with a playful smile on his face. Yes, no. Rihaku's tongue was almost tied because of nervousness and fear. It doesn't matter whether it is true or not, you are the Rihaku, right? I heard that you plan to steal the country? Luo Di stood condescendingly, and the Shinigami scythe in his hand exuded a strong aura of death. Perhaps out of fear, Rihaku covered half of his face with his fat hands. Under the blocked shadow, he was winking at the surrounding gunmen. Bang! Someone fired. Several bullets were shot at Luo Di's back at the same time. At the same time, Rihaku's other two men, Patty and Limey, two masters he had previously sent to guard the West Gate and East Gate, took action at the same time. They were once pirates with a bounty of 20 million belly, but they were all recruited by Rihaku with a huge amount of money, and now they are Rihaku's right-hand men. Dang. The bullets fired on Shinigami's robe did not leave any traces. Instead, they ejected and fell to the ground like hailstones. Immediately afterwards, Patty and Lemmy, who were hanging in the air, were both shocked. But now was not the time to think too much. The arrow was on the string and had to be fired. The two of them hit Luo Di on the back of the head, one from the left and the other from the right. The wind of the fist roars, and the force is as strong as 1,000 stones. However, a sudden change occurred. Buzz! With Luo Di as the center, the surrounding air seemed to be roaring and trembling. This is the Conqueror's Haki that Luo Di has mastered after 4 years of training. However, he still can't control it well. It can only be activated, but cannot be precisely controlled and applied to a certain person. Therefore, he has never used it before. Under the mighty conquerors, Rihaku, who was closest to Luo Di, rolled his eyes and fainted. Patty and Lemmy felt an unprecedented sense of stagnation. Their heads were a little dizzy and their bodies were a little stiff. When they managed to cheer up, their fists had already fallen. However, they were horrified to find that they had all missed. Bang! Patty and Lemmy butted fists and squeezed the air, making a sonic boom. The body that was originally going straight forward lost its original trajectory, became a little distorted, and faced the same direction. This allowed them to accidentally injure each other. Luo Di, on the other hand, stood still and didn't move. It turned out that it was the Conqueror's Haki that confused their thinking. Although it won't cause fainting, it will have some effects. Ghost Side Shocking Slash! Luo Di didn't give the two a chance to adjust, and the Shinigami's scythe sounded the bells of hell, ending their lives in one fell swoop. And around him, with him as the center and radiating outwards, soldiers fell one after another. A rough estimate was that there were hundreds of people. This is the power of Conqueror's Haki. At this moment, almost everyone who noticed this sudden change looked at Luo Di. The soldiers armed with swords and guns fell into a deathly silence. His hands felt like they were filled with lead, and he couldn't even pull the trigger. What a monster this is! The strong men they were familiar with, Lemmy, Patty and even Fok, were all killed by the young man in front of them. Even Rihaku was frightened and now he didn't know whether he was dead or alive. What's more, there were nearly 100 unconscious soldiers surrounding Luo Di. Various circumstances indicate They can't fight this monster. Except for those who were still fighting to the death, the rest of the Crusade army also looked at Luo Di silently. Cohen's body was stepped on by an enemy soldier, which gradually made him wake up. Thanks to the heavy armor he wore, otherwise he might never wake up again. After forcing himself to stand up, he realized something was wrong. Most people on the field were looking in the same direction. Some people who were fighting desperately also stopped. He was a little curious, and passed through each person with blurred vision, and finally locked on a figure. My vision is too blurry. He patted his head and wiped his eyes, and then he could barely see clearly. That's Luo Di? It's a bit incredible, a bit hard to understand. I've said before that after Luo Di led them to break through the north gate, he took the map and key and left. So, why did he appear here? Moreover, the thing next to it seems to be Lehaku. A sudden start. Cohen looked around and finally focused on the frowning King Shizuru. Your Majesty Shizuru! A faint but familiar shout came from his ears, and Shizuku turned to look. It's Cohen! But he seemed seriously injured. He stepped forward with the knife in hand, supported Cohen, and asked anxiously, Cohen, what's wrong with you? Cohen shook his head and said it was okay, then he pointed at Luo Di and said excitedly, Your Majesty, that person is the Luo Di I told you about. He was the one who saved Princess Fina and me. As soon as these words came out, Shizukuro was startled at first, and then became excited. So it's him. So this country can be saved? Rihaku seems to have been knocked unconscious by him. So is the war over? War only brings endless suffering. If it could end early, for Shizukuro, nothing would make him happier than this. But Cohen's expression was a little complicated. To be honest, he wasn't sure what Luo Di was going to do. Although Luo Di once said that he had no interest in this country, the strong strength he displayed still made Cohen a little afraid. In short, it is an unstable factor. Moreover, he basically knew nothing about Luo Di, and it was often the unknown that aroused suspicion. In fact, Luo Di really has no interest in this country. He looked around and could see many corpses in the distance. This reminded him inexplicably of the tragedy that happened in the small fishing village. The same misery, only on a much larger scale. Why? With a slight sigh, Luo Di lifted Rihaku up and placed the Shinigami scythe around his neck. The war is over! In an instant, the entire venue became silent, with only the words shouted by Luo Di echoing continuously. At this moment, the blazing sun hanging in the sky seemed to dispel the haze lingering on dizzy St. Valen. Bang, bang, bang. Everyone laid down their weapons. The outside crusade troops hugged each other and cried. Rihaku's soldiers also unloaded their guns and lowered their heads with a final sigh. There seems to be relief and twitching. In short, at this moment, everything seems to be over. But is it really? Oyama looked at the savior-like figure. He was not tall, but he gave people an inexplicable power. He stopped the pen in his hand, and there was an unprecedented excitement on his slightly wrinkled face. Maybe the young man standing in the center can bring an unprecedented craze to the world in the future. At this moment, Oyama decided. He planned to bet the rest of his life on that boy. He wants to witness a different future. In the end, Luo Di did not kill Rihaku, but handed him over to the country. Shizuku imprisoned Rihaku, and decided to behead him in public after dealing with everything in the country. Nearly 10,000 people died in this war, and there were still a lot of things waiting for him to deal with. However, thanks to the help of the Marine 101 branch stationed here and the 105 branch who came to support, a lot of the burden was relieved. After the war, Luo Di is regarded as a hero by people in this country. He was the one who ended it all. But Luo Di was a little bit dumbfounded. In fact, this is a transaction mixed with personal needs. Only by killing strong people, especially those with devil fruit abilities, can he become stronger quickly. If I had to say it, he gained the most from this war. After a war, his physical fitness greatly improved. If his physical fitness before was comparable to the weakest major general in Marine, then now, his physical fitness can reach the upper middle level even among Marine Major Generals. Of course, this is just about physical fitness. In the afternoon, an unexpected guest came outside the palace. He is Major Blake of the 101st Branch. At this time, he had mixed feelings in his heart. A boy who appeared out of nowhere and looked to be only 11 or 12 years old actually successfully saved the country, and was hailed as a hero. Doesn't this just satirize Marine's incompetence? He had also investigated Luo Di before, but only found out about his deeds in Delata town. He seemed to appear out of nowhere, no one knew where he came from, and his only companion was a girl named Aiko. That girl was also very powerful and had rich fighting skills. She seemed to have killed many mafia and pirates in this war. This time Blake came to invite them to join Marine. This is a special order issued by Marine headquarters. They don't want Luo Di and Aiko, who have strong combat power, to take a path that is completely opposite or even hostile to Marine in the future. In a guest room, Blake met Luo Di. After a brief self-introduction, the gate of opening extended an invitation straight to the point. Luo Di, I wonder if you have any plans to become a Marine? Luo Di shook his head without any hesitation, expressing his refusal. No, of course, don't try to persuade me. I won't join Marine no matter what. One sentence directly blocked what Blake wanted to say later. However, there are some things he still has to say. Actually, General Zifa asked me to invite you. He doesn't want you to go astray or even become a pirate in the future. However, since you are not interested in joining Marine, I will not force you. The words have been made clear, and Blake does not intend to stay here. Just getting ready to leave. Luo Di's words made him freeze in place. Colonel Blake, to tell you the truth, I don't have a good impression of Marine. Of course, there are good people in Marine who have done a lot of good things. I don't deny this, but there are some things I will never forget. There used to be a small fishing village on the west coast of this island. 4 years ago, a group of pirates suddenly arrived, attacked the place and fled. But the next day, a group of Marines came, as if to wipe their butts. In other words, to cover up his incompetence, he burned the whole village down. And I, and my sister Aiko, are the survivors of that tragedy. Luo Di looks at everything rationally. He won't join Marine, there are too many limitations. Blake stiffened. 4 years ago? Pirates attacked the village? Small fishing village? Words poured into his mind one by one, and a long-lost memory was awakened. He remembered. He was a lieutenant colonel 4 years ago, and he did that thing. He patted his head in annoyance, not knowing whether to say it out loud. But in the end, he still didn't have the courage to speak out. Perhaps 4 years have eroded away his original righteousness, and now he is no longer the passionate and pure righteous young man he was back then. Okay, then I won't say anything else. Finally, thank you for saving this country. Blake bowed deeply, turned and left. Luo Di gave him a strange look. Just now, his mood seemed to have changed in some way. But Luo Di then shook his head. People always have emotions. Isn't it normal for emotions to change? It's night. A banquet was being held in the palace. There was singing and dancing, and it was very lively. King Shizukuro expressed his gratitude to Luo Di. Luo Di said it was nothing, for him it was just a transaction. Then he took out the map and the treasure house key. We have taken away what we need, and the key will return to its original owner. Shizukuro took the key back without any courtesy. After this war, many people were injured or even died, and some houses were destroyed due to the fighting. Now they are in urgent need of a large amount of funds. The treasure in the treasury is exactly what is needed urgently. Luo Di straightened his body and suddenly lowered his voice. King Shizukuro, I have something important to tell you next. This matter is related to the life and death of this country. Hearing this, Shizuka put down his wine glass and became serious. Please tell me. Luo Di nodded. Then he told the contents of the phone call that was originally made to Faisal. Shizuru listened quietly, but his face became increasingly ugly. What? Let us fight among ourselves? He will come to attack the kingdom of Scythia tomorrow to reap the benefits? Luo Di stretched out her hand to signal him to calm down a little. If my guess is correct, that person should be the king of the kingdom of Keonia. As soon as these words came out, Shizukuro frowned, somewhat disbelieving. Impossible. Lipland is a gentle and kind-hearted person. How could he do such a thing? The Lipland he spoke of was the king of Sionia. But Luo Di shook his head. There is a saying that knows people but not their hearts. There is also a kind of person called a smiling tiger. Maybe the king of Keonia is that kind of person. Of course, I told you all the information I heard. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. To be honest, he didn't have any friendship with Shizukuro, only a relationship of interest. He was able to tell everything, and he was already doing his best. In fact, he can also help Shizukuro figure out the logic, but it is not necessary now. MD, I'm calling you now, who's still talking about logic with you? Shizukuro was silent for a long time. Fina, who was talking to Aiko, was the first to notice something was wrong, so she walked over. Father, what's wrong? I've always been looking sad. Isn't the war over now? It's time to be happy. Shizuru came back to her senses and touched her head lovingly. Fina, let me ask you a question. Answer me seriously. Are you satisfied with your engagement with Prince Keonia? Fina puffed up her face, a little angry. Father, I still want to ask you to terminate this engagement. That Rihaku actually wants to send me to the kingdom of Keonia. There is obviously some kind of deal between them. Shizuru was shocked for a moment. Is there such a thing? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Fina patted her head, a little embarrassed. Well, I accidentally forgot it. She indeed forgot. There were so many things she had experienced in the past 2 days that she had no time to care about anything else, so she temporarily forgot about it. Shizukuro's face turned livid with anger. Damn Lipland! At this moment, he knew that he had been fooled. Then he stood up and walked out without saying anything or looking back. He had to discuss it with Koan and make arrangements in advance. Fina looked at Shizukuru's back, then looked at Luo Di. What did you say to my father? Why is he so angry? Luo Di shrugged. Obviously I'm angry with you. You said you did something wrong and insisted on marrying that Keonian prince. Now, the war is about to begin, and your father may start a fight with them. Bang! Fina kicked the chair next to her hard. He snorted coldly and continued to chat with Aiko. Luo Di took a sip of fruit wine and shook his head helplessly. What he said was true, and indeed a fight was about to begin. The moon is obscured by dark clouds. The evening breeze could not blow away the haze in Shizuru's heart. At this time, he and Koan were walking towards the port town connected to the south gate with an orderly escort. And the guards were pushing cannons. Shizukuro is preparing for tomorrow's battle. This battle can only be won but not lost. And in the sea getting closer and closer to the kingdom of Sitkaya. 50 large ships are moving forward quickly. The king of the kingdom of Keonia, Lipland, stood on the bow deck of the ship, his eyes deep, as if looking at the kingdom of Sitkaya across the sea. Everything seemed to be under his control. But why can't I contact Faisal? He asked Laviton, the captain of the guard, who was standing behind him. There was a hint of confusion and anger in his voice. Why can't I contact Faisal? This question has troubled Lipland for a long time. Since that communication, he has never contacted Faisal again. Moreover, not only that, the second in command of the betrayer, Nitfa, and even the strongest third in command, Smanton, could not be contacted. Including the chess piece he installed in the kingdom of Scythia, Rihaku, he could not be contacted. All signs reveal something strange. Lipland considered various scenarios. But I can't figure it out. At this time, the strongest man in Keonia, the captain of the bodyguard Laviton, spoke. Your Majesty, I'm afraid Faisal has encountered something unexpected. Lipland was silent for a moment. When Faisal was talking to me at that time, his voice was indeed a little weak. Could it be that other forces were involved? He is still kept in the dark and does not know that it was Luo Di who was talking to him at that time. Laviton tightened the hammer in his hand. No matter who the other person is, if he dares to block His Majesty's way, I will smash him into pieces. Liplan nodded. Then he rubbed his eyebrows, showing fatigue. That's all, I don't want to think about it anymore. Let's wait until tomorrow comes. Raviton, you should go and rest for a while. Yes, Your Majesty. This night was very difficult for many people. When the sun rises again, layers of defenses have been set up outside the port town of the Kingdom of Sitkaya. Cannons pointed at the distant sea level. Behind the crude wall that had just been built lurked a soldier armed with a spear. They looked solemn and silent, just waiting for the enemy's arrival quietly. And Cohen put on a brand new armor, and even if he was seriously injured, he would continue to fight. He wants to live or die with this country. King Shizukuro put on the armor left by the previous emperor, and the sword in his hand was shining brightly. This time, he will also fight on the battlefield. In the royal city, the civilians also knew what was about to happen. Some people are packing their things and preparing to escape. Some people take out their ancestral guns and want to join the battle. Some people put their hands together and pray silently. In Branch 101, Blake smoked silently and looked at the information on the table absent-mindedly. Is the Kingdom of Kionia going to war again? It's such a troubled country. Oyamo hid in a hidden corner of the port town, holding a camera, phone and notebook in his hand, and once again transformed into a war reporter. Yesterday's news is still being printed overnight. Is there any major news today? I wonder if the boy named Luo Di will show up. Turning back unintentionally, he seemed to notice a figure. So he quickly took out his binoculars. I saw a person sitting on the top of the towering south gate wall. And that person turned out to be Luo Di. In fact, Luo Di came here early. But he didn't take Aiko with him. This war was bigger than before, and he didn't want Aiko to get hurt. As for why he came? Mainly to hunt the strong. Hunting strong men can make him stronger quickly, and only by becoming stronger can it be easier for him to go to sea in the future. He doesn't want to be a little guy who needs to be protected by others after entering the new world. This is not in line with his philosophy at all. Coming! Suddenly, as if he sensed something, Luo Di narrowed his eyes and stared into the distance. After seeing and hearing, he noticed 50 ships in total. However, except for a few of the boats that are relatively similar, the rest are somewhat different in size and shape. It even looks like a pirate ship. Very strange. But there seem to be a lot of people. 5 minutes later, a scout standing on the watchtower suddenly changed his expression. Your Majesty, they are here. It is roughly estimated that there are nearly 50 ships. They will arrive in half an hour at most. As soon as the sound came out, almost everyone became alert. Shizukuro also tightened the knife on his waist. Everyone hide, don't make any noise, wait for them to get close and catch them off guard. Shizuku is very smart. The outside of the harbor town was not completely cleared. Some goods and ships are still staying in the harbor. There are even soldiers pretending to be merchants or pirates walking back and forth. Dozens of cannons were also shrouded in black cloth, as if they were covering some cargo. Viewed from a distance, the entire port town generally remains unchanged. But beneath the peace and tranquility is endless murderous intent. Your Majesty, there is nothing going on up front. They probably don't know about our arrival yet. The investigators lowered their binoculars. Liplan, who was sitting at the bow of the ship, nodded and stretched out his right hand as if to hold the entire kingdom of Sitkaya. They must be still tired of repairing now. They must speed up and get ashore as soon as possible to capture Sitkaya in one fell swoop. At this time, Chief of Staff Aizahan, who was standing at the rear, touched his pale beard and made suggestions. Your Majesty, I think it's better to disembark from other places. There will definitely be special inspection personnel in the port town. We have 50 ships. If we arrive at the same time, I'm afraid we will alert the snake. Bang! The big hammer in the hand of the captain of the guard, Laviton, fell heavily and made a dull sound. "It's okay, as long as Bragi and I are here, no one can talk." Bragi is a sniper, very famous in the kingdom of Kionia, and has the reputation of being the first sniper. At this time, he was standing on the observation deck, wiping his beloved gun. The chief of staff looked up at him, and finally nodded, agreeing. But obviously he was a little unwilling to do so. Inexplicably, he felt that it might be dangerous to rush straight into the port town. After all, Rihaku, Fiesel and others could not be contacted, which was too strange. Forget it, with Laviton and Bragi here, there should be no problem. Half an hour, which originally passed in the blink of an eye, seemed unusually long at this time. Finally, as the 50 ships increased from small to large, Shizukuro immediately shouted, "Shot!" The soldiers who were ambushing behind the wall had been waiting for a long time. They all stood up and fired bullets from the dark barrels. The gunner also took off the black cloth. Below were huge forts. Following the main gunner's order, the cannonballs were fired at the ship at the same time. Bang, bang, bang. On the deck of the ship, a Kionian soldier who was on standby was caught off guard, and dozens of people were killed in an instant. The ensuing shells hit the hull, leaving a dark hole. "No, I was ambushed." The remaining people in the Kionian kingdom understood at the same time that they had been ambushed. "Damn it, you can't run now, otherwise you will be used as a living target. Hurry up and bring the cannon up and fight back. The helmsman is preparing to dock." The chief of staff immediately stepped forward to take command. Immediately afterwards, cannons were brought up one by the soldiers, with shells already loaded inside, just waiting to be fired. "Fire! Fire back!" Several gunners immediately adjusted their angles, and the shells fired into the port with a roar, killing several soldiers instantly. Sniper Bragi stood on the lookout, pulling the trigger slowly and without missing a beat. Each bullet would kill a Sikia Kingdom soldier. King Lipland was hiding in the rear and knew that he was ambushed, but he didn't say anything except that he looked a little ugly. He still believed that he would not lose.